Spicy scene. All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the October 20th Litchfield Budget Committee meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we'll start tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we will start tonight's meeting with public input. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak tonight? Oh, we'll do this first. Yeah. All right, seeing no public input, I'm going to close that. I did forget we have one of our members for remote participation this evening. So we have a motion to allow remote participation by Ms. Douglas. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Barca. And we are going to have to roll call tonight for everything. So I'm going to start with Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
And Ms. Hirschberger.
Yes.
Mr. Leary.
Yes.
Ms. Douglas.
Yes.
Mr. Sun. I'm a yes. Ms. Stevens.
Yes.
Mr. Barca.
Yes.
And Mr. Bork.
Yes.
All right, so that carries 8-0-0. Mr. Taylor, we'll let you state briefly just why you're remote this evening and if anyone's with you.
I am on travel for work, and there is no one in the room with me.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. All right. Any review or additions to tonight's agenda? Just a notice, we do have a few folks joining us this evening. I know I'd mentioned we were going to move across the tab, so I'm going to be respectful to people who are in the room with us tonight. So we'll move library up to the beginning. Library has asked that perhaps we hold voting until next week when their director is here to join us, but we can certainly ask questions and have a good game plan on what we want to do with library, and the ladies can answer any questions for us tonight. We'll also do police, and Mr. Brunel, I know, is planning on being here most of the evening, but we can do IT early on if we need to as well. Any other review additions? Everything good?
Yep.
All right, correspondence. I'm going to read through this quickly. Ms. Stevens put this together, and she gave some good feedback that as we're getting some very detailed questions, it thought it might be helpful to people who are hearing this or going back and watching it to get some good context on the questions and the answers that were provided. So on October 13th, Finance Director Karen White answered 2 questions from the committee. She does not believe that there will be enough in 2022 underspend to prepay the May 2023 communication tower lease payment, and that Mr. Troy Brown may have asked legal for approval to use impact fees towards the fire station bond payment. She was not on any correspondence on the topic. Ms. White also shared on that date the 2023 default budget and the underspend for FY 2021. Also on October 13th, Town Administrator Kim Kleiner provided data that Saturday, Sunday, and Monday had the highest fire call rates by days of the week over the last 12 months. The addition of 2 weekend firefighter positions would not reduce call firefighter wages due to current reduced accessibility of on-call firefighters on the weekends. The on-call officer stipend is also still necessary, as this officer is the decision maker in the absence of the fire chief or senior ranking officer. On October 14th, Ms. Hirschberger notified the committee that the business administrator is reconciling a conflict dating to the FY 2021 school district financial forms. Once that is complete, the FY 2022 MS-25 may be submitted by the school district to the state. Also on October 14th, IT Director John Burnell explained the reason to upgrade from Google Business Starter to Business Standard licenses is to gain access for shared drives and archival vaulting for users, and that currently meeting archives and business records are stored outside of the system to reduce cost. However, it is not as secure because it is not stored via cloud services. On October 15th, Mr. Sullivan shared the 2022 warrant articles and current task list. On October 16th, Mr. Sullivan shared the October 13th meeting minutes with the committee. On October 17th, Library Trustee Chair Donna Ferguson clarified that the majority of the year the library is open for 41 hours per week, 38 hours per week during the summer. She also provided a weekly schedule for each librarian and page. Fill-in hours are used when staff take earned time or attend trainings and conferences. She also noted in their current FY23 budget, there are both additional hours for one current assistant librarian and one current page, but that they do not need both, or they're looking to provide the committee with options for budgeting. On October 18th, Ms. White explained that the road maintenance rose in the default budget due to the 2022 warrant article approving a full-time highway position as well as the increases in wages and health insurance for the department. And finally, on October 19th, yesterday, Ms. Hirschberger shared the most recent BA report with the committee. That's a summary of our correspondence from the last week.
And the answers from the questions.
And
were in the
yes,
same
thank you. And on that same email on the 19th, Ms. Hirschberger also shared I missed that the first time too, the answers from questions that had been asked by Ms. Douglas and other folks from a couple weeks ago. And then I also shared today with the committee an updated agenda for tonight that had the correspondence on it. I think that covers our correspondence.
I'll update that correspondence for the minutes part because I didn't read through that email thoroughly since we were working on town.
That's
so
all right.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
There was a lot of stuff in that.
All right, next on our agenda, review and acceptance of minutes from October 13th. Has everyone had an opportunity to review those?
Motion to accept the minutes.
A motion from Mr. Bork,
Second.
second from Ms. Douglas. All those in favor, Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Ms. Hirschberger?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Douglas?
Yes.
I am a yes. Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Barca?
Yes.
Mr. Bork?
Yes.
And Mr. Taylor?
Yes, yes.
All right, that carries 9-0-0.
Probably the only thing we agree on tonight.
Get it out of the way, right? All right, moving into town business. So tonight begins our town voting process. Just to catch the public up briefly, we've spent the last 3 meetings hearing presentations from various departments and administrators from the town. It's been an opportunity for our committee to ask questions, get clarifications, whether in meetings or electronically over the last 3 weeks. And tonight begins our process of voting on the town budget. Just, I shared this in the email when I sent tonight's agenda as well. If you look at the tax cap tab, which is the second tab on the 2023 budget, as we currently stand today, we are $251,621 over the tax cap. And also, since the last time we met, there have been placeholders put in for some potential warrant articles and with some approximate tax impacts as well. So just something to consider as we move to get under the tax cap. We also have to be thinking about those potential warrant articles, which we'll vote on in January. All right, so with that, and with respect to people who are in the room tonight, I'm gonna start with library. And I know we said we're not gonna actually vote on library tonight because they've asked that we do that when the director is able to join us in case there's any final questions. What I would like to do is to have a discussion on potential cuts that we think we may be looking to make to the library and have a plan of action for our meeting next week. So we'll start with library.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to cut $251,621 from the bottom line.
From
The
the
amount again?
town budget.
Right.
Okay,
I
so,
will second it so it can be discussed.
all right, so we have a motion from Mr. Bork to reduce the overall town budget by $251,621. So motion by Mr. Bork, that was seconded by Ms. Douglas. And discussion.
Well, bottom line, there's a tax cap for a reason. And that's what the town should adhere to. We can sit here for the next 2 meetings for 6+ hours and make whatever cuts we make. It's a bottom line budget. It's gonna go back in $251,000 less than it is. And we can sit here and play the shell game and move things around. But then it goes back to the town, and they can decide how they're gonna spend the money. I don't think it's our responsibility to get their budget to the tax cap.
So I appreciate your point of view. My only concern with that is I believe there are items in the library budget that ought to be warrant articles. And apparently the discussion is that the Board of Selectmen cannot reduce the library budget, so that would have to be done here. So my only amendment would be to add to that what should later be taken from the library.
We can still approve a bottom line cut and then still go through
You
with
can
it.
still go back, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, so, just to clarify, when we take a vote on this, it would not preclude us from going
No.
Still continuing to go line by
No,
line.
that's just
find
gonna get you,
additional
that's
cost
just gonna
savings
get you
the
to,
town.
that's just gonna get you to where you should be.
Correct. Yeah.
And if you wanna go further from there, then you can go further from there, cause like you just said, there's warrant articles coming right behind there also.
Right.
So, well then, if there's warrant articles in there, then should the number that we're reducing by then be reduced? I guess you're right, you can identify which ones should be warrant articles.
Correct.
In that
Or
list.
Potential things that, there, to me, there's other items, I think, potentially beyond the library that could be warrant articles.
No, absolutely, I went through my list today, so I have my proposals, but having sat with you the last time we were in this position and knowing we spent 3 hours fighting over 80 grand, I'm sure 250 will be even more entertaining of a discussion.
It'd be easy to cut 250,000, we wanna go budget for budget, but I don't think that's our responsibility.
Well,
I think this should have been handed to us, $251,621 less. And then we take a look at the budget.
I was actually went through just now, looking at all the different budgets, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Larry, did you guys only make 3 cuts from the department budgets? And from what I can tell, you made the IT cuts, which were things you could do one-time spending on. Then you removed a police car. That was more of a policy thing, because you want to do 1-1-1-1.
They bought a police car.
Yeah, and they want to switch to 1-1-1 every year.
and I think they just got
believe.
a grant, did they not? Didn't you just get a?
That was last year.
I thought there was a grant accepted on Monday, is what I heard.
That was for
Yeah, we
something else.
accepted it,
That
but
was
he had
something,
already
yeah.
purchased the car this year.
And then,
Oh.
yeah, and then you cut the weekend hours from the fire station, which I'm assuming is gonna be a warrant article, right? But other than that, there was no other cuts, from what I can
We
tell
recommended
anyway.
other cuts, but like I said, the library cut, they can't do.
They can't do.
We don't have any control over that, and, I thought we made some other cuts. We made a few other cuts. Because we came up with, was it 100 and something thousand? We cut it in half that first night. We cut the
Yeah.
deficit in
No,
half.
maybe it's just not,
I was actually surprised that after, like to me, one of the no-brainers is the car insurance and not sending out those bills. And to me, that's a strategy thing that I feel like should be coming from the selectmen and not from the budget committee dictating that.
Which car insurance are you talking about?
I'm sorry, not car
Registration?
car registration. Yeah. I mean, that's just one example. I mean, I don't know. That was a surprise. Not even knowing what happened last year, because believe me, I didn't watch.
Oh, no, it wasn't last year, but. it
Oh,
has
okay.
been
I
years
don't
past.
know the history. I didn't even know how you stood. But one of the first things I said was, what surprised me was that the budget committee does not get a budget that's under the tax cap from the selectmen. So that it just was really surprising to me. And I feel like they should be prioritizing what the things are that are really essential. And
And they will afterwards, because it's still a bottom line budget.
Well,
So-
there is that
Exactly.
point, right? No matter if Brian and I shockingly disagree on where the 10 grand or 20 grand should come from, that doesn't mean that later the Board of Selectmen doesn't say, we disagree with both of you and we're taking it from here. So I appreciate where you're coming from.
I just think we can
Mark
save,
that.
I
Mark
think we
that
can
for
save
you.
us all a lot of time.
I don't disagree with you on that either. Going back to Mr. Barker's question, so I did pull up the document that Ms. White sent, that's the 2023 budget adjustments. And if you look at reductions, it looks like the Board of Selectmen, pulled out the call firefighters. They had a conversation about the library. They cut the PD cruiser purchase, which we talked about, ARPA funds for IT equipment. There was some health, child advocacy center, and then some rates that were set, PD dental and some other things. So it was about 140K in cuts. Not all of that was the Board of Selectmen, but a large chunk of it was. Other discussions around the motion at hand? Other thoughts? Mr. Taylor? Mr. Hayes?
I'll just repeat what I said last week. At that point, if we're just gonna take a look at it from a tax cap perspective, then why are we wasting our time? Why did we waste everybody's time as far as coming in and discussing their budget and reviewing everything, if all we're gonna do is just rubber stamp, whatever you're over the tax cap, cut, and everybody goes home 5 minutes later? I think that's irresponsible, and I don't think that that's why the voters put us in this position.
I don't think it's irresponsible. I mean, that's what we're gonna end up doing anyway. And then the
that's a
selectmen,
starting point.
yeah.
I do, and Mr. Taylor, when you mentioned that last week, I tended to agree with you. I don't look at a potential 250 bottom line cut as us being done with potential cuts, because I do think there are other places, things that are could be pulled out for warrant articles that could provide additional cuts. I don't think that stops our work. I think it,
Here's your baseline.
refines it.
right. Other thoughts?
I guess
Mr.
my only thought
Hayes?
is, I guess for me, it's a little different. Like, I just remember when I was on the school board, and if the budget committee just made a bottom line cut, I'd be upset. I'd like, no, tell us where to cut. So
Yeah,
like,
they
I'm
got,
gonna give the
they were
town
very
the same
adamant
perspective.
about that.
But at the same time,
It is different because they
the
have,
school doesn't have a tax cap.
yeah, they don't have tax cap.
They
but-
do.
But
But
I
it
remember,
does
I remember
come
back in the
down
days
to-
that the budget committee used to just say, we wanted it to be here, and they just make a bottom line cut.
And I think one of the
It's
things,
too easy.
I think one of the things to be really clear to the public that may be following this for the first time, the fact that we're 250K over the tax cap isn't necessarily a reflection of poor budget planning. There's a lot of increase from a year ago that I don't think were anticipated when we look at insurance, fuel, electricity, and the warrant articles that were approved.
And the way in which it's calculated is interesting. Like, I would have thought that since the warrant article was approved and taxpayers literally approved that particular spending, that it should not count against the tax cap in the
I agree
future.
with that too.
So what was raised and appropriated
Because by
last
for
year
zero.
goes forward,
Right.
but not the difference. So if we only
'Cause,
raised and appropriated for 6 months,
Right.
the next year you have to pick
Right.
up the next 6 months. If we could have done it for a whole year, we would have been
So
good.
like the police position is a great example of that one.
Yes.
So
That's
maybe,
how I understand it, cause if you
Right.
look at it, it's what your tax effort was
Right.
last year. And our tax
that the
effort
full-
is whatever the warrant articles that were raised and appropriated for tax effort.
So the difference, what I was looking back at the annual reports, and the difference between 2022 and 2021 was approved was actually $209,328. So,
What's that from again? I'm sorry.
so these were the approved dollar amounts on the warrants for 2022 and 2021. So despite the tax cap of 175,000, the actual increase was but close to 210,000, so about 3%.
Because the voters have the opportunity to override that. I mean, the voters have the opportunity come deliberative. If we get it under the tax cap, they can come in and take us over the tax cap. They have,
except then we can't, well, then we're in trouble, cause we have to we have to recommend a budget that still complies. The people in the room don't have to,
right.
but we still have to.
I'm just saying that's a potential situation. But, you know, I think, I actually watched Monday's Board of Selectmen meeting. I thought Mr. Schofield made some good comments. It doesn't impact our work today and what we have to do. I do think as a town, there might be an opportunity to have a conversation around that tax cap, and should it be a percentage versus a dollar? I think that's a very worthwhile discussion and something that should go forward to the voters. Doesn't solve our problem today and doesn't change the motion that's at hand, just my
Right.
2 cents on that. Other discussion?
One other comment, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
So in taking a look at overall, as I went through the different sections, we've got over 215,000 that is just wage increases alone. Never mind the 11% plus increase when it comes to health insurance. So, I mean, between that and then obviously the fire station and the communication tower lease payments, makes it very, very difficult to be able to try to come in under the cap. I think most people will agree that I'm probably the most vocal as far as cuts are concerned. I probably have a list of 48 potential cuts, and I still come up $25,000 short. And trust me, the stuff that I'm gonna throw out there as far as cuts as we go through, because there's certain things you can and can't cut, you just can't get to that number.
Sure you can. So
There's gonna be, well, I mean, there's gonna be some tough, there's gonna be some.
I actually found more than, so I think the other thing too to recognize is the taxpayers aren't the only source of revenue in town. We have an ARPA fund that's available that could be used to blunt the impact of this. We have probably some impact fees in some things. We probably have other buckets we haven't tapped into that could help reduce that or increase the revenue side without raising appropriations. I mean, I know that there's been meetings with the CIP on how to recommend the ARPA spending, but the Board of Selectmen ultimately has the say, and if they decide that paying down the the fire tower makes the most sense, then they could do that. And that would limit some of the impact, or they could spend somewhere else that would offset some of this increase. So there are strategies that could be employed that don't involve hacking away, although, like I said, I did find some areas I would, but ultimately that's something that the Board of Selectmen has to come to do, right? So, and they're the ones that have the authority to spend that. I can't tell them, hey, you must spend this ARPA in this line item. I could recommend it and suggest it, but I can't make them do it. So.
Mr. Larry, I'd be curious as to your thoughts on this, sir.
I think that due to circumstances out of our control, we're already over the tax cap. There's really nothing we can do about it. I mean, if we cut 251,000, what do? Do we pull the SRO officer? Do we pull the plow guy? I mean, what do we do? I mean, those are decisions we're gonna have to make. I don't know where we're gonna do it. My recommendation would be just to not recommend the budget and let the voters have the say.
We can't legally do that, though.
You can not recommend the budget.
I think
You can't legally recommend the budget that's over
Over
the
the tax
tax
cap.
cap, but you cannot recommend the budget.
And I think it's
Can you
important.
actually put forward a budget that the budget committee does not recommend?
We'd have to
I
check
didn't
into
think that
I
was
don't know the answer to
legally
that.
allowed. I thought last time we tried to do that, they're like, oh no, you actually have to have, it's because it's technically the budget committee's budget. Like, you
I think
have
it's your
to.
responsibility.
You have to.
We'd have to take a vote. I think the question would be, would we vote in favor of it? I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know that, well, maybe that's a question for legal. Can we actually put on the ballot
It's a really good
a
question.
budget that the
yeah.
budget, that the budget committee does not support? Because I believe the last time this came up, they said, no, you have to actually provide a budget that you support.
Because I know like the selectmen can put forward like warrants that they don't support. Like they can put it forward but still not support it, so.
Yeah, but usually they don't, because that's not good optics.
No, it's not good optics, but it can be,
Yeah,
it
if we
can be
didn't support a
done.
warrant, it wouldn't
Yeah.
go on the ballot.
You get 25 signatures on the side.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion on this motion at hand?
Just to Mr. Taylor's point when he said he doesn't want to rubber stamp it, I think the selectmen rubber stamped it before we did. Because here it is, $250,000 over. Let the budget committee be the bad guys where they're gonna make the cuts. That's not right.
You didn't rubber stamp anything, Brian. You apparently didn't watch the meetings.
I did.
Well, you probably should have taken notes then.
You probably should have delivered a budget that was not over the
We
tax
delivered
cap.
the best
You
budget
probably
we
should have
could. If
delivered
you
a
don't
budget
like
that wasn't
it,
over the
Okay,
tax
vote
cap.
okay,
no.
okay, guys.
If you don't
Okay.
like it, vote no.
I think it's a tough situation, right? Because legally, it's the budget committee whose hands are tied and not the Board of Selectmen. So from the Board of Selectmen point of view, they're not legally obligated to provide a budget that actually meets the tax cap, even though we have to support one. Would it have been a nice team play to provide a budget that the budget committee could actually support? Sure. But the reality is, they're not legally required to, but it would have been nice. But.
So I'm curious if anyone on the budget committee has ever tracked any of the cuts you've made and followed it the following year and see if those cuts actually came from any of the things you suggested or you made motions on to cut.
I don't disagree with you, that, again, it's,
And
bottom line
again,
budget.
we're gonna
that
beat our
is
heads
why
with
I'm
Same on the
saying
school
that I
side.
actually, despite the fact that in principle, last week, I didn't agree with you, I think I've come around to your point of view.
All right. If there's no other discussion, I'm gonna call a vote. Last call for discussion. Mr.
Yeah.
Hayes, yes, sir.
Yeah, my only comment is, we're asking for a 3% cut in the budget. By bottom line, reducing it by 251,000, just 3% or 3.1%. Seems to me the selectmen can come up with a 3.1% reduction to present to us something that's under the tax cap.
So, does this tonight have to be the final vote? Can we
Tonight-
punt it back to
Tonight
say,
does
hey,
not have to be the final vote.
how about instead of
It's-
saying, we're gonna make a blunt cut, come to us with your list? And then next week, if they don't do it, then we can make the blunt cut, like, when is your next meeting?
Well,
So
we
they
can,
have a
we can
meeting on-
cut and uncut.
That's true.
So let's,
Also
if
value.
we wanna take a vote and we feel,
We can
you know,
vote.
strongly that we're gonna cut, let's
And we
cut.
can vote next Thursday, and we can vote it January 5th as well.
I saw it a little bit also as they needed more eyes on it. They did what they could. I think they maybe could have found some more, but, so, it would have been nice to at least see it closer, at least even to the value of the tax cap at least, but, there's value to having this many more people look at it.
Especially with ARPA, I mean, that's where I really feel like the selectmen would wanna play a role in identifying those funds and taking them out of the budget. So I feel like they definitely have avenues to do it.
Or it kicks I would like to say, because taking a lot of those funds would kick it to the next year's tax
I
cap.
understand,
So I'd like to
yeah.
see how much could we actually pull out, and then what's the plan with the tax cap? Because to have the same, it just doesn't make sense to have the same dollar amount tax cap as it was 10 years ago.
Well, the budget's gone up. Probably,
Almost double.
I was gonna say over $2 million at least, and that number's remained flat.
And this was a problem last year with the fire truck. We really need that fire truck. This entire committee agreed with it, agreed that we needed that fire truck, and we could not vote for it because of the tax cap. So I'm a little bit frustrated that there hasn't even been any Board of Selectmen discussion on the tax cap before having someone come forward with public input to request that discussion.
But also to your point, I brought it up, I think the first meeting that I attended as a board member. You could have voted for that fire truck. You just would have had to cut $800,000 out of the budget. And again, if the selectmen felt that strongly that they need that fire truck and they wanted that fire truck, then give it to them. Cut $800,000 out of the budget.
Right. I had asked that with the warrant articles, should we not recommend some of these other warrant articles so that we can recommend the fire truck?
Right.
And the answer was the fire truck was the last priority on that list.
So I honestly, going through this, there are areas where they could have been warrant articles, just straight out to remove it from. That way it's not a blunt cut and it's like, well, we really need this, but we're gonna have to ask on it'll be a separate vote. Sure, you run the risk of a no means no, but people will at least see that it's needed and have the opportunity to put it back in the budget.
We could cut the $251,000, and all the selectmen are gonna do is they're gonna find what they want for warrant articles of that amount, and that's how it's gonna work.
I don't disagree. Like, honestly, it's, again, finding myself in agreement with you. Like,
Any other discussion?
yeah,
Be
'cause
respectful to our time tonight if we're gonna continue. I think this is a healthy discussion, so I don't wanna limit it, 'cause I think it changes the scope of our work a little bit.
I think what
tonight.
we could do is people could forward their ideas in areas where they think, warrant articles could be suggested. Because again, even if we say, you can make this up with warrant articles,
That's up to the selectmen what they want for warrant articles. That's not our responsibility to.
That's not budget committee.
That's not us. I'm not gonna tell them what to put on a warrant article. That's all, they
you
can do
can
whatever.
do that if you'd like, but I'm saying that there are areas where I see clear opportunity for warrant articles, and I would have no problem sending my ideas to saying, hey, if these came forward, this is an idea. You can choose not to, but I could funnel it through the chair as, hey, these are the top 5 ways I think you could, make up some of this ground.
Well, and when you make your individual cuts, you're cutting that line, and
Exactly.
in the spirit of discussion, say, I believe this should be
Right.
a warrant article.
Right.
Again, it's not up to us to determine that.
So that's one of the downsides to the blanket cut, is we're not gonna necessarily have the discussion of, hey, I'm voting against this particular area because I think you can make the argument over here. So yes, that, from Mr. Taylor's perspective, that conversation gets lost, but at the end of the day,
It gets lost anyway.
doesn't matter, because they can reallocate and rebalance however they want anyway.
I come back to, and probably hard pressed to find anybody more diligent with going through this line by line than Mr. Taylor has in the past. And if he came up short of 251K, we can go through this for 2 days, and are we gonna get to 251K?
I was gonna agree on
Hell yeah.
250K.
No.
Yeah, I went over, but.
All right, final
What?
call discussion.
What I would like to say is, we go through the discussions, make cuts where we as a committee can agree, and then maybe it's, the last of it is just a bottom line,
What's
because
left
there's
is a
just
bottom
nothing
line.
left that we can do.
So you're saying if we go through line by line tonight and cut 100K, then maybe the last motion becomes a bottom line of 150K?
I think that's a balance between the two.
Well, the only problem then is, like, if I came from one line and Brian came from another line, then we don't agree, but even though we agree on the amount, so that's where that discussion comes, because
We're
that's,
gonna get to the same place.
right, so at that point, it's just like, sure, I'll take Brian's cut because it doesn't matter, it's gonna get rebalanced anyway, essentially.
But I agree with Mr. Taylor that I don't wanna say, here's 250K off and let's all go home.
And say, let's go home. I
That's-
think you're still gonna go through the
Right.
budgets.
We are.
That's just gonna be your starting point.
All right, I'm gonna call a
Start-
question.
I guess I
And how
don't,
does it get applied?
Just don't
For the
understand, yeah,
purpose
Because
of the
it's still
spreadsheet of
increased
tonight.
By
Does
the,
everything
with
just get reduced by
175,000
They would
over
decide,
last
the
year.
selectmen would
Right.
So
decide.
it's a matter of like, should it be 175 over, or should it be just 100? Or should it be flat?
but if we take 250 off right at the beginning,
Yeah.
then each one of these lines are off because we don't know where
We
the
don't know what's
money's coming from.
yeah.
You could do it, 200, you just divide the percentage and apply a 2%, 3% cut across the board.
Yeah,
Because
like a
that's
3.1,
essential-
3.2%.
Because that's essentially,
lines that aren't contracted or.
well, the MS 27, I think, is just what, like, account numbers, right? Like the big accounts. So Board of Selectmen, boom, or however detailed it gets, you just do
Okay.
a 3% cut on that, and, cause again, like Mr. Bork is saying, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
after it's approved, it's gonna get rebalanced.
Right, absolutely. No, I'm just trying to understand what are we trying to do as a process here?
I just,
I think what we're trying to do as a process
I don't
is
like it,
get
but-
to the tax cap and then go line by line and find additional opportunities for cost savings.
So does it matter what the vote is on this question?
has to be a majority to pass.
Maybe.
We're going, that's what I just don't, I just don't understand if, I guess,
We don't wanna double cut though, that's the
It'd be
thing,
weird to
you know
cut
what I mean?
250,000 and
Yeah.
then go and remove the police car, cause, I mean.
is that included in the 250,000?
exactly,
That's what I don't that's,
Alright,
I'm just trying to get clarification.
let's call vote. I call vote. Question. We'll do roll call. And we'll start with Mr. Hayes.
I'm a yes.
We have a yes. Ms. Hirschberger?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Leary?
No.
No. Ms. Douglas?
I think because it's a bottom line budget, I'm gonna vote yes.
Yes.
And honestly, that's where I feel.
I struggle with this. I'm gonna vote no. Ms. Stevens?
No.
Mr. Barca?
No.
Mr. Bork?
Yes.
And Mr. Taylor?
No.
Alright,
Alright, so that does not pass by a vote of 4 to 5. Spirited discussion, appreciate it. Appreciate the
So now for the next 2 days, we're gonna work on cutting
The thought.
$251,000.
Appreciate the thought, Brian, and I do think,
Doesn't mean we won't.
it doesn't mean
add
we won't still
75
have
at the end.
a bottom line cut that's left as we work through this, so. Alright, let's start with library. While the ladies are still here, and I know that came up in our conversations just now.
No, 4550.
Sorry, yeah, that is 4550, and then there is a link that takes you to the proposed budget there. So we're gonna start with library. We're not gonna actually vote, but if you have recommendations that you're thinking about cutting, we can have that discussion right now, and that way we'll be prepared to vote on that next Thursday.
Who are the pages? Are they students? Are they?
One page is, one page isn't.
Okay.
so I found the budget to be a little confusing, simply because there's two ads and one is kept and one goes away, so the bottom line was kinda a little difficult to really figure out what you're really asking for. But since both of them are included, I would advocate that you pick one and put that as a warrant article, and then I would make the motion to reduce it from the original budget.
So if we did that, and if that were our direction, ladies, please correct me if I'm looking at this wrong, but the tab that says Assistant Librarian Scenarios has different options in there. One option that's $10,847, one option's $5628, $3,000, and $1,800.
And
If-
even those numbers are confusing.
Well, if we added all of those up, about $20,000. if we reduced that amount, and then the library was asked to put forward a warrant article for their preferred choice.
Yes, that would be my suggestion.
Okay.
But even when I look at the numbers, I was struggling with them because it shows, where is the scenarios? So it shows an increase of 10,847, but position 1 is a total of 32,400. Position 2, which I understand to be the new one, is 17,728. So why are we not asking for 17,728? Why are we asking for?
It's an increase, so what was budgeted in 2022 was 3928, and then what's budgeted in 2023 would be 50K.
Right, but the current total, the sum of the proposed budget for position 1 is 32,400. The difference between that and 50,000 is more than 10,000. So it's not clear to me where exactly the 10,000 comes from, because the new position, the difference is actually the 17,728, so I'm not clear on where the 10,847 comes from.
So your question is what's budgeted 39,281? Why is that different than position 1 at 31,266?
So if I look at the wages for position 1, plus the fill-in hours, plus the merit increase, the total is 32,400. So I'm assuming there must have been a change or a change in personnel, perhaps, that resulted in a lower cost person. So if the proposed budget for this position is accurate, then 32,400 is needed for position 1, and 17,728 is needed for position 2. So I would budget it to the actual cost of the 32,400 and then request the 17,728.
That's not a new position.
But the budget shows that the cost of the position is 32,400. Based on the numbers that are in the spreadsheet, position 1 wages 31,267. Fill-ins, 376, and merit increase, 758. If you add all three of those together, it's 32,400. So while I appreciate that last year was budgeted at 39,281, 23's cost should be 32,400. We should budget to the person in the position.
Can you explain scenario 1 again? Is there already position 2 available? But
There is.
they're only working 8 hours a week?
Right.
Right.
Okay.
I think that's
So
a little
position
bit-
1 today in the budget is that 31 plus 375 plus 758, right?
Position 1, and then you have the
It's in the
fill-in
budget.
hours and the merit increases, which gives you the
Okay,
32,400.
so that's already in there. Position 2 exists, but it's only at 8 hours a week, is that correct? Okay.
8 hours a week for 13 weeks, which I think is the difference of.
All right, so then what I would suggest is that this gets listed differently because I find it confusing. And so, if I find it confusing, I think there will be others with a similar question, especially since it's highlighted as, so I would put existing position 2 and then add position 2 below it, just so it's clear.
Or just put the existing position 2 wages in the 2022 budget.
Somewhere,
column.
but yeah, because when you look at the numbers, it just looks like, oh, well, there must have been a change in personnel that reduced the cost.
I think when I look at the proposed library budget, I personally didn't see other places for cuts. I think it's centered around these proposed
So
positions.
my other question is relative to the insurance buyout. I said, noted an increase in the insurance buyout. What have we increased it to?
What line is that?
It's line
140.
52. Oh, yeah, yeah. It's
52, yeah.
line 52 in the sheet, but 140 on the account code.
Oh, I see it, okay.
So there was
I
an,
don't know, to be honest with you.
it's fine.
All right, I mean, you're coming back next week, so it'd be
We are
good to
coming
know.
back next week.
I
With
can
the
tell you, I'm not a huge supporter of where the insurance buyout is. So even on the town level, I've long advocated that it's something that needs to be revisited. So increasing an insurance buyout when I'm already opposed to the current buyout of other, I would be looking at something there.
Or is it that more people are taking advantage of that? That's
It's a percent, as I understand, it's a percentage of the
Cause it
health
says 2
insurance.
full-time employees, I didn't know if it maybe was one.
It's a sizable buyout at the town, and if, as insurance increases, then the buyout value increases, because it's based on the premium that we're not paying. So I'd be curious as to what percentage are we offering as a buyout?
One another percentage. Okay.
And I think, Donna, if that tab that says assistant librarian scenarios, if we could see, I think, to their points, what's the current position look like? So position 1 this year is, 32,000, whatever that adds up to, $32,400. Position 2 currently is X, whatever that number is, right? So that we can see that and see the difference as to what's being proposed.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
Thank you.
And then whatever the proposed, okay. Okay.
Other comments on the library budget?
I do have a few comments, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
So again, yeah, of course, Kerry, see, here we go. So again, we gotta take a look at the top line number of 250,000. Meanwhile, we're basically just playing somewhat of a shell game of put it on a warrant article so we can kick the can down the road, and we're gonna have the same problem going into next year. There's 3 areas that I'm gonna propose as far as cuts next week when we go through this. First one is gonna be line 123, assistant librarian, a cut of $50,128. Line item 670, books and media, eliminating the additional funding piece of it of $2,809. And line 140, the insurance opt-out, eliminating that line item completely of $10,794.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Any other comments tonight for library?
I think the opt-out is a MOU between the, town and the library that started many years before I got on the board.
No, they budget for their own now.
What's that?
They budget for their own.
They budget their own now? Okay.
Their own health insurance.
But we voted on that a couple of years ago.
Well, what had happened was that the library had picked up a couple people that needed insurance, and it
Yeah.
wasn't in their budget.
Yeah.
So we took it out of our budget, and then they budgeted for it the next year.
But I remember
and it's
this
been going
committee
now.
talking about it, and Brian Hodgkins, who was on the committee at the time, said 5,400 for a buyout versus 19,000 for insurance. It was a
Yeah.
no-brainer, and so we voted to keep it.
Yeah.
And I don't know when it started. I mean, it was long before I got on the board.
Well, this one's a little different, is that I think that they changed the eligibility for insurance not too long ago. They reduced it to like full-time being 32 hours, when most other departments are not at 32 hours. And I believe I sat here saying at that time that insurance was gonna be a problem once we make that change.
Well, isn't it legally 32 hours now with
There was
Obamacare?
there was an,
anyway?
there maybe it was that they were at there was an adjustment made to make people eligible for insurance.
I have a question for the town. Say we did cut everything that Scott just recommended. You can't touch this budget. Can you add that money back if it is a bottom line budget? It's a bottom line budget. So we're gonna cut $250,000. Say 50,000 of it does come from here. If you decide as a selectman that you don't think it should come from the
I don't
library,
know.
can you even put that money back?
I don't know the answer to that, because we don't have any control over the
The
library.
library
They're their own
trustee
entity.
does, yeah.
So
So-
that,
So if we cut that money, it's gone unless
Unless
we
you
add
get
it
it back
back.
at a deliberative.
Or deliberative could add it back, okay.
So,
you can add it back?
I would think you could add it back.
You could, okay, they could add it back, okay.
so I know we
We
discussed
found
this
it
in the
now, but-
past, and I don't, because there is its own entity, I've asked in the past if the library could be its own warrant article and outside of the town budget, and I don't recall what the answer was to that. Do we?
Oh, have its own default, have its own budget, have everything?
Well, just why, if they're their own entity, and it's essentially a pass-through for the Board of Selectmen, why is it even in the Board of Selectmen's budget? Why is it not a standalone warrant article and let people vote directly?
Fix your tax cap.
When's the lawyer coming?
I don't remember,
Next week. Gonna have her busy.
I just don't remember if we got, it's still one of those things that I keep getting asked, and I honestly don't remember what the answer was to that.
I know we've discussed it, but I don't think we ever came to a decision.
Can it legally be done? Because if it can't be, well, then there's no point in discussing it. But if it can be legally done, is it worth discussing?
So I think to Mr. Barca's point, we do have legal here next week
Yep.
for our RSA discussion. I think these are great questions that we can bring that evening as well.
And I apologize, if there was an answer out there, I honestly don't remember what it was.
Anything else for library this evening? Donna, so the feedback is the updating of the one tab, assistant librarian scenarios. So that next Thursday, when we take action and vote on things, we're able to clearly see what currently is budgeted and spent and what's proposed for 2023. Okay. All right. Let's move to police, since our interim chief is here this evening. I want to respect his time
Thank
as
you.
well. Thank you, ladies.
Yep, thank you.
So let's do police, and then we'll start moving in order from there. So if we can move to
4210.
get back on my right page here. What was it, Derek? Sorry.
4210.
Thank you. 4210.10. We'll start with police. Currently, have a recommended budget of $1,976,385, which is currently an increase of $175,829 over last year. So we are taking action this evening on this.
So I sent it, and I apologize for the lateness of the email. I've been fighting fires elsewhere this week. Do we know how far into this gentleman's deployment we are, and so how close we are to being able to remove that position from, or reallocate those funding?
It's 3 or 4 years, I think.
I'm not sure, I think, is it one more year left? I think he's almost up.
I believe that's what we pretty much calculated.
We're obligated
But
for
if you-
5.
For 5, yeah.
Yeah, and, I mean, if you pull it, and they hire somebody, you gotta raise and appropriate it again.
No, I know, but right now, if
I
it's an
know.
opportunity to be like, it's not filled anyway, as much as it would be enjoyable to have an additional police officer, if we literally aren't filling it,
But the monies are in the budget, correct?
I understand, but I'm
Money
looking
is
at
in the
ways to
budget.
get, yes, money's currently in the budget.
But
An
we're not
open
using it.
position.
We're not using it.
The past couple of years, the chief had always used that line to do one-time purchases at the end of the year. Things that they needed, vests, things like that, safety equipment that they did not put in the budget.
So it's like a little bank account for them.
See, I don't like
What,
that.
$80,000?
Huh?
How much is it?
It's only one, it's one position, so,
Yeah.
him plus his insurance and all the other stuff.
And what's the total?
I honestly don't know off.
Probably pretty close to what you said, maybe
Yeah.
a little more.
So,
What line number is it?
$80,000.
I'm sure, once you factor in,
Well, that's what I'm saying, so we're leaving $80,000 in there for
Right.
them just to spend.
which is why I don't like that, that's why I'm asking the question. See, again, you and I are in agreement.
But are we,
Someone marked the day down.
We should go buy lottery tickets.
It's on film, YouTube.
do we have any motions for police?
I wanna start with 111.
Give a motion.
Ah,
Brian,
beat you
go
to
ahead.
it.
Let Mr. Bork go first.
Well, so, last year, from a warrant article, the SRO officer was approved.
Correct.
But we haven't spent that money.
Has he
So-
been hired?
No, the first 6 months of it came out of the police line item from last year. It was in their budget. The town doesn't start paying until next year.
Right, but we didn't fill that position.
No, he's been selected, but we haven't put him over there yet due to a staffing shortage right now.
Right. So, once that person is put in place,
Mhm.
then you're gonna be taking $41,067 out of unassigned fund balance, because that's how the warrant article was written.
That was for this year, wasn't it?
Right, but they didn't spend it.
Right.
So for next year, they should take it out of unassigned fund balance.
No,
So-
next year it goes on the budget.
Yeah, that's why.
No,
figured into it.
his was that we had budgeted in the budget for a part-time officer. They didn't replace that part-time officer, but it was already in the budget for 2022. So what the police had done was taken that portion of the 6 months and he had done a spreadsheet, so whatever his insurance cost, whatever his wages were, that he came up to, if we hired an SRO for 6 months, it was gonna be no cost to the town, because it was an offset.
It was gonna come from the unassigned fund balance.
No,
No,
it was
no,
underspent.
it's just
I
in
think
the
it
budget.
may have
No,
come
it's
from our
underspent,
guy on
actually.
deployment,
taxes,
honestly.
yeah.
Okay, so it's gonna
It's
come from
just
the
in the
underspent,
budget.
but we didn't spend it, correct?
We have not spent it yet.
That's correct.
Right, so when we do hire someone, it should come from the underspent. So I'm gonna make a motion to reduce line 111 by $41,067, which was what the warrant article was.
What was that amount again, Brian? 41,000?
$41,067.
Oh, so since they were planning to fund it from an underspend,
Then they should plan this from the underspent.
I will second you.
So we have a motion by Mr. Bork to reduce line 111, PD officers, by $41,067. We have a second by Ms. Douglas. Discussion.
I think we need a spreadsheet that runs against the 250 or whatever, so we can just
See
start
how far
tallying
we
them
are.
up.
I mean,
I got it going, Carrie.
Yes! It's one of those things where I miss Andrew, because you know he.
I like where you're going, but wouldn't we be better off just going after that slush fund we're talking about?
It's out of
The
one.
$80,000 that is just sitting there they're using for the end of year stuff, because that officer isn't here?
Yeah.
Well, that's like a separate thing.
Separate thing?
Individual cuts, okay, that's cool. You can always add that to
I
your,
was
you can do
actually,
another
on line
cut.
111, I was actually gonna say eliminate the line of 63,315, and then in hopes that
Again, so they want
town administrator
So
could
did you
give
want to
us,
amend
you
it
know,
then,
breakdown.
Mr. Taylor?
pretty much.
Say
The
that
full
again.
amount, 63,315 was what I was gonna cut on 111, and then ask the town administrator for next week to revise the, all the different, you know, social security, health insurance, things of that nature, based on that cut, to get what our real value is.
I see.
So are you gonna amend it, or do you wanna just go with this and then make a second cut?
I'll go ahead and go with this, and then I'll do the second cut of the difference, which is 21,645.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second, it's still in discussion, to reduce $41,067. Any additional discussion? Okay.
Chief? You have anything?
Yeah, sorry, yeah, I don't
Sorry.
wanna, I wanna give
Anything
you all an
you wanna say?
opportunity. Thank you.
You just haven't pulled up a chair.
How did I just miss that?
Well, I just, oh, sorry, go ahead. You go.
I'm just discussing with the finance director. I think we already made the adjustment further down in the salary line when we made
So
the
what,
reduction to the part-time line. So I'm trying to figure out if the action you're proposing is actually a double cut.
Oh,
so we had taken 38,173 out of the part-time line, and then moved the SRO officer up to the full-time line. So that would have only increased by, I think it was the highlighted one at 3031, that's now 63,315. That deduction of 38,173 had to do with that 63.
What line's
That makes sense.
what line's the part-time?
Highlighted one.
14.
Under 125, PD special
25. I see,
offices.
Line 125?
Yeah, so we
So,
deducted
38,000.
38,173 for that part-time officer. And then we moved it up into that full-time 111 wages at the 63,315.
Sorry, you said 125. Are you talking line 125?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so, yeah,
the
if you look
account
over.
code.
it's
Line
number
27.
Line 27.
Number
But it's,
27,
number
row
125.
27, line 125. Expense line
Got it.
125.
So, question, so the amount that Mr. Bork has proposed, are you saying that for the most part, you've accounted for that already in line
The
125?
38,000 we deducted from that line, yet, when we moved him up to the full-time wage line. So 111 is all the full-time offices, and the special offices are the part-time. And so the officer that left was a part-time, and they had already budgeted for that in this year's budget, and that was gonna be the offset for the 6 months of hiring. So we took his wages out of there, and then put up the full-time up top at the 63,350.
But those wages were from the warrant article for an SRO officer, not just to make
It
someone
was
a
a
full-time.
zero, yeah, no, it was to make a full-time officer, to take the part-time, cause he was a part-time SRO officer, and to make him full-time,
A full-time SRO.
yes.
Is he a full-time SRO?
No, the part-timer left,
Okay,
and
so,
so,
so we don't have a
we
full-time.
don't, but.
That's
yeah.
my point. That was the warrant article to hire a full-time SRO officer with $41,000 to be half
But
of
you
the
have,
salary.
you have somebody that you've been interviewing, right?
Yeah, we're trying to actively fill that position with a new hire, take somebody who's experienced,
Yep.
which we've already
Right,
done,
yep,
and assign them to that position, so it's a backfill, if you will.
right.
Which row's the officer that's not here? Are we allowed to know that? Or is that private? The one serving?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Which row is the officer is serving the military and is not here? Are we allowed to know that, or is that private? If it's private, it's fine.
Well, we've discussed them before.
Yeah, I don't know that
I think
it's.
you're just trying to understand that dollar
I
amount.
think
Yeah.
it's the
I think
military,
it's
that's
Corporal
private.
Brown.
It's Corporal Brown.
Line 12.
I'm not privy to, I'm not subject to any.
I think it'd be cleaner to leave the SRO as it is, since that is getting filled, and just take that money out, since we know it's not gonna be spent this year, and it's being spent on other things. So I'll make a motion to modify the current motion to be 79,405.
So we have a motion to amend the original motion and change the amount to 79,405. I have a motion by Mr. Barca. Do I have a second?
I'll have a second.
Second by Ms. Douglas. Discussion.
Well, it's gonna be more than
Where you
79.
getting
It would,
that from?
we would have to know the social security and the healthcare and all that stuff too.
Where you getting that from?
It's,
The officer who's not
it's
being
the
paid.
officer who's
Can we
not.
legally do that?
The one that's on deployment?
What if he
cut that.
comes back early?
He comes back, he's entitled to that position immediately,
Sure, but
immediately.
but are you literally holding $80,000 to the side, or $100,000 once you factor in insurance and other stuff? It's
No,
like
they're
in a
spending-
lockbox.
They're spending it.
No, I know, but so is it in a lockbox? Then not being touched at all. I agree with you in principle, but the reality is,
We have to find 250K.
if he comes back, we will be in a similar position. We'll have to find a way to fund it. But I also think it would be awesome if he would make his intention clear and say, no, I'm really not coming back.
I mean, the point is, if he comes back, yes,
We
money
have
will
to.
have to be found for him, absolutely, which means cuts would have to come from somewhere
Somewhere
else. I think when we look at the 250K that we have, this is one way to attack it.
Yeah, but just keep in mind, though, that if you look at it that way, then you should add these amounts to the $250,000. Otherwise, you're not cutting the budget enough, and there's still gonna be that extra $100,000 kicking around.
Oh, so, I was thinking that's part of my 250. I don't think it should belonged in here and shouldn't have been part of the 250. I think that the 250 should have been like 150 once all that stuff was taken out. Or put in $1 just to leave the line item open, just in case he comes back and you're legally covered. I don't know.
Oh, is that why you said 404?
Yeah. But the reality is, it's a line, it's already got money in that account, right? So it doesn't really matter. But
So a motion, second, any additional discussion
What
on
was,
this?
was your motion for the full 405?
I modified it to be the full 79,405.
Okay.
Correct.
And leave the
It's not
SRO
the
alone.
SO, so it's not
Leave
the
the SRO
SRO
alone.
anymore,
Yeah.
it's the other.
we're asking things again.
The
I'm
other
afraid
position.
to remove, to zero it out.
Well, it's part of the whole other line, though. It's not its own line.
Okay, okay.
It rolls
It's
up
part of the
into
salary.
Which is why I was joking with him about making it
Correct,
$1.
yeah.
Keep the
So,
line item in corporate.
essentially what you're doing is you are reducing line 111 by, which is a total proposed of $909,326. You would be reducing that to $829,920.
Yeah.
Any additional discussion?
And 'cause at the end of the day, it's still gonna be a matter of however the Board of Selectmen want to rebalance it. If they feel that this position needs to be funded, just like anything else, they'll just have to rebalance it. Like if we took the money from somewhere else in their budget and they said, no, that's really not where we wanna take it, they're still moving it around anyway. To me, it's just one of those, I understand what the law is, I just think that at some point, I mean, I don't know.
All right, let's call a vote. Mr. Hayes,
I'm a yes.
Ms. Hirschberger,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Nope.
Ms. Douglas.
Yes.
I am a yes. Ms. Stevens,
Yes.
Mr. Barca,
Yes.
Mr. Bork,
Yes.
and Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
That motion carries 8-1-0.
And all
But that was on the amended, right? We have to vote on
I'm sorry,
that.
Oh,
well,
yeah, That is, do we accept the amendment?
Yeah, so that is to accept the amendment, right?
Good call.
And so,
Good job.
well, now I gotta think through this. That is, now we've accepted the amendment.
So now the current,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the
now the
language.
current motion is that full.
Current motion
Yeah.
is to reduce the line item by $79,405. Have a motion?
Second.
Second.
Oh, we already motioned.
We already have a motion. and we
Yeah,
have
now
a
it's just a
second.
vote, yeah.
Mr. Hayes,
Yes.
Ms. Hirschberger,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Nope.
Ms. Douglas.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Ms. Stevens,
Yes.
Mr. Barka,
Yes.
Mr. Bork,
Yes.
and Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
All right, so that also passes 8-1-0, reducing line 111 by 79,000 for, I'm sorry, yeah, $405. I think,
Oh, yeah, I did that wrong.
Yeah,
didn't I?
thank you.
Yes.
And what are the impacts?
I
to-
did it right, I wrote it.
What are the impacts to the rest of the budget based on that? Social security, retirement, everything, health?
Oh, I would have to, figure that one.
Are we
No.
paying, that's a
So-
good question, though. Are we paying his health insurance right now? Because we might still be using that.
Well,
That's a
I'm
big-
fine, if we can fund the family's insurance,
Right.
but if we're not,
Yeah.
the position and the retirement or whatever else goes with it would be,
With that, yes, we do, budget for the, health insurance.
Okay.
So he would be, well, that would be split in half, but what are our rates for interstate retirement?
I think we just need a list of all the rest of the funds that are attached to this.
no, I know, it's,
Yeah,
it's nice,
okay.
for
We don't
yeah.
have to have that right this moment.
No, we'll be
Yeah,
back,
yeah.
cause I'm sure it's not the only one that's gonna be attached.
Mr. Taylor, I know, I think, you, Mr. Bork beat you on the last motion. We'll turn it over to you, sir.
All right, thank you. I'd like to make a motion to cut line 140 overtime by $7,729.
We have a motion by Mr. Taylor to reduce line 140 PD wages overtime by $7,729. Do I have a second?
Yes. our Brian
Second
can
by
have it.
Ms. Douglas.
Brian can have it.
Discussion.
So, Mr. Taylor, that was my next cut, but mine was bigger.
It's a very specific number. Where'd you get that?
That's what it was
I
increased by.
basically took the increase year over year, going back to what we had talked about when the police presented. The pitch was the SRO was going to allow a reduction in overtime. I at least expect it to be level set, so I put it to level set. But if Mr. Burke would like to
Amend it.
amend my motion, he can certainly do so.
I would. I'd like to amend your motion to $20,000.
I will second it so you can discuss
Yeah,
it.
so we have a motion to amend by Mr. Bork to change the number to 20,000. We have a second by Ms. Douglas. Discussion.
For years, they've been adding police officers, and for years, we've been hearing the same thing. It's gonna reduce, if not eliminate, overtime. And yet overtime keeps going up.
I don't think it's eliminated.
They're short-staffed.
Yeah.
They don't have
they're
enough
very-
positions
You're
right now.
down one officer, right?
No.
That's what I was, I asked the
Two or three?
question. One.
Three.
Two.
Two at the moment, yeah, soon to be
Last
three.
Another week
Last week
it'll
you were
be
down
three.
one.
Yeah.
I asked the
So-
question last week and I was
Said
told.
two.
But even still, if
Good
you're
one.
not paying those guys, those salary lines are now available for overtime. Like if if we're paying for 5 and we have 3 and we need overtime, well, you have 2 empty spots worth of money to draw down on, which is in excess of the cut that Mr. Bork is making. So, and if I look at the, well, my spend thing is dated anyway, but it looks like you're at, as of the end of September, at 86,000 with a budget of, well, are we the 108? This is line 140?
The budget was 108,154. Yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, they still have 20, as of the end of September, 23,000, they were burning through,
What's the percent
it was
left?
at 20%, so.
It's on track.
But you also have empty positions from which you can also draw. So, but again, it's gonna be a shuffle anyway, right? It's bottom line. So I think it's a reasonable place to make a cut. Whether that's where it stays, I don't know, but I'm agreeable to that location.
I'm in support of Mr. Taylor's original motion, because I agree with his logic behind that and, kind of the previous argument around adding the position in SRO position and that overtime would decrease or at least level set, so,
If you look at from 2022 to 2023, the new position is an officer position, right? So if you look at the difference between the overtime budgeted for the officer line, there's about a $10,000 difference from 2022 to 2023. So it's sort of in between that 7 and
But if
20.
If you look at the current line 125, well, current as of a month ago, 60% was unspent. That was $56,500 in part-time officer funding. Was available as of the end of last month. So even if we are up against it on some overtime, there are other lines available because when you're short-staffed, you're not paying people, so you have that money available. Man, Brian,
That said, though,
You and I are
they did
just
already
blowing
reduce
your
that part-time line by like
Correct.
$38,000.
Right.
So that next year won't be that beefy.
That's correct. Any other discussion on the amendment? So we are gonna vote
On the
to
amendment.
amend.
20.
Mr. Hayes,
Yes,
Ms. Hirschberger,
This is to consider the amendment, right?
20,000.
the language, yeah.
The language, yes, okay.
Mr. Leary,
No.
Ms. Douglas,
Yes.
I am a no. Ms. Stevens,
Yes.
Mr. Barca,
No.
Mr. Bork,
Yes.
and Mr. Taylor.
No.
That passes 5-4. So, to the motion to reduce line 140 PD wages overtime by $20,000. Roll call vote. Mr. Hayes.
Yes,
Ms. Hirschberger.
I say no.
Mr. Leary.
No.
Ms.
Douglas. Yes.
I am a no. Ms. Stevens.
Yes.
Mr. Barca.
No.
Mr. Bork.
Yes.
And Mr. Taylor.
No.
So that amendment fails 4-5. We are back to the original motion of the reduction of $7,729. Is there any additional discussion on that? Okay, we'll roll call vote. Mr. Hayes,
yes,
Ms. Hirschberger,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Ms. Douglas.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Ms. Stevens,
Yes.
Mr. Barca,
Yes.
Mr. Bork,
Yes.
and Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
See, we had another unanimous one. Look at that. That motion carries 9-0, so that reduces line item 140 by
Had to put
$7,729.
me wrong. I'm gonna have to start saying things like that. We're never gonna agree again.
Mr. Taylor, I'll keep it with you, sir, since you're remote. If there's any
Well, I don't
additional.
know. Is Mr. Burke gonna read my mind and pick the,
We'll see. I think you're looking over my shoulder.
line 199, community detail, looking to reduce that particular line item by $1,000.
So I have a motion by Mr. Taylor to reduce line item 199, community detail, by $1,000. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second by Mr. Bork. Discussion?
Oh, so it's
Yep,
level
just
funding.
based on the fact that, you know what, we're 250 in the hole, and we just can't do that extension for an additional $1,000. If there's community needs, then we're just gonna have to pull from the existing force or reconsider whether we need to have a detail for it.
Can you refresh our memories as to why that went up from,
It's already overspent this year.
Yeah, we're already over it.
thank you.
And those are things like,
Football
School
games,
and town
basketball
events.
games, yeah.
right,
No, it's not
No,
Spooky
no,
World.
no,
Spooky
no,
World is
that's
separate.
paid.
Yeah,
okay.
So it's the football games, the basketball games.
it's town events.
Graduations,
Fun events.
any of the
Fall
town
festivals and
stuff.
things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the festival, yeah.
Any town event that
Christmas
has a
lighting
police
and-
presence.
So none of that would be covered necessarily from the school resource officer, or would it be?
Probably not, cause they have detail in their contracts,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Any additional discussion?
I mean, it's already overspent. It's a matter of, you know, do we want to discourage? This is one of the areas where, I think it actually makes a big difference. So I
But Carrie,
appreciate where
do you want to spend $1,000 more on community detail, so you want to be able to fund vests and other
I guess the
critical-
question is like, if that's what the cost is, what are we going to, are we gonna start charging the basketball team for details? Are we gonna start charging for, like, again, at the end of the day, it's up to the town to decide what they're gonna do. I just think of all the cuts that are possible, this is not one that I would support.
Any additional discussion? All right, we'll roll call this one. Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Ms. Hirschberger?
No.
Mr. Leary?
No.
Ms. Douglas?
No.
I am a no. Ms. Stevens?
No.
Mr. Barca?
No.
Mr. Bork?
No.
And Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
That motion fails 2-7-0.
Appreciate the discussion, though.
As always.
Can we-
Mr. Taylor, I'll leave it on you, sir, if you have any additional
I am
items.
actually done. I will defer until we get to the next tab.
Okay.
So can I ask as far as 149 overtime training?
Mhm.
Is there a reason, do we have to pay overtime for training?
Go ahead,
If
yeah.
it's outside their normal hours, you do, right? Yes.
If it's
Yep.
outside their,
Yep.
their normal hours, you're required to, pay the overtime either for the officer attending if they're on a day off, or the backfill for the officer that has to cover for them if they're attending, specialized training at the police academy or something, and they're scheduled to work, you gotta backfill it, and that's
So-
what that line is used for.
So-
Those two.
There's not a way to like coordinate like schedules so that it's not overtime?
Boy, I would love for the academy to have a schedule
Okay.
that would fit into a number of different police departments, but it just doesn't.
Is there a reason why it's so underspent this year?
We have a number of end-of-year trainings coming up, one on Saturday, for example. And then there's a number of, evening trainings that have to occur. So end of year, it's gonna be close.
It's bigger, okay.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
So I'll go down into six, I get the right number here. I thought it was, oh, I'm sorry, 760. I'd like to reduce 760 by $64,290.
Have a motion by Mr. Bork to reduce line 760 PD cruiser purchase by $64,289. I'm sorry, did you say 289 or 290?
290.
290. Do you have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Douglas. Discussion.
It's real simple. I'm trying to get to $251,000. And I think right now we can like bypass 1 year of a cruiser.
When it goes in, back in next year in the budget, it's just that line's gonna go back up again.
So I guess, that's another
To
thing.
2?
Huh?
To 2?
Well, we'd probably have to look to two to stay on the schedule. Yeah. But we
Well,
try
that
to keep the
doesn't mean
things that are every year purchases, we try to keep them consistent.
Right?
You
And
can
I'll
buy
go to
that
Carrie's,
with ARPA.
I'm sorry.
What's that?
You could buy it with ARPA though. So
Yes,
you wouldn't
but
have
then
to
when
buy
we,
two the next
when
year.
ARPA's gone and it's gotta go back in the budget to
Correct.
stay on the schedule, then that
At
budget
60.
line's gonna go right back up again.
But 65 would be back in there next year.
And
Right.
to Carrie's point, I'm not gonna suggest you put on a warrant article, but there's always that option.
That and reevaluating the tax cap is also an option.
And if it comes back next year, Bob, that's okay. We'll vote on it then. We promise.
Additional discussion on the motion at hand.
It's the line of the night right
Well,
there.
yeah, if it's a warrant article and you raise and appropriate, it doesn't get added to your.
It would get added to the, yes, to the 2024 budget.
So it still goes against the tax cap.
Not,
Warrant articles do.
Not if, only if it's a zero though, isn't it?
Zero ones
No,
don't
it goes
go
against
down.
this year's tax cap. But once you raise and appropriate, isn't it part of the?
Yeah, it sounded like as long as we spend the money in 2023, it would be
It-
part of the 2024 tax cap, right?
That's-
So whatever's budgeted is going to go over, whatever the warrant articles are, that was raised and appropriated will go
Forward.
over. 2024, yeah.
You could
So if you
strategy.
pulled this out and this was zero, and next year they needed 2 cars,
It would be way over, yeah.
Would be way
But say it
over,
passed in a warrant article, then it would be
it
flat.
would, yes,
Okay.
exactly, yes, yes.
other discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
if I could just remind the
Absolutely.
committee that the vehicle that we're looking to attain and replace is essentially the officer's office for a total shift. And these cars run 24 hours a day. They are operated differently than a passenger car. You're shifting from park to reverse to drive, you're opening and closing doors, you're getting in and out. There's stresses on all of the systems, including the structure, including the driver's seat, the electrical system, all of those things. And if you look at what I gave you for fleet mileages, we've got some that are already over 100,000. We've got some that are approaching 90,000, and that's just odometer miles. You have to add idling time to that, and that is an extra stressor on the engine and all of the other systems. We originally asked for 2, and that was based on our experience. One of them was cut by the selectmen, we understand. But I think if you take this one out of our budget proposal, yeah, I think it's gonna put us way back. And the potential for additional repairs is very likely, and we're already over in the repair line as it is with the existing fleet.
So a couple of you mentioned the memorandum that was sent on October 3rd, which listed the full fleet and the mileage. If this was left in the budget and a new vehicle was purchased, which one on this list would be replaced? I'm assuming it's the 2018 Tahoe or the 2017 Explorer.
That's what I would say tonight. However, cautionary note, there are some times that another vehicle becomes much more of a problem.
Sure.
And it's more cost effective, if you will, to replace that one when that's not what we identified tonight. So I'll say, yeah, one of those tonight, but cautionary that might not actually occur.
And just a second thought, just so where my head is on this, if this does pass, and this kind of goes against everything we've been doing, I wouldn't be opposed to slightly increasing vehicle repairs and maintenance, just to provide a little bit of cushion there.
I just want to make the distinction that we're not saying a cruiser cannot be bought.
That's a true statement.
Correct.
We are just saying it needs to be funded differently.
That's a true statement.
Absolutely.
All right, any additional discussion?
I guess I have a quick question about how the cars are used. So, at any point in time, there could be, I guess, what's the most amount of officers on duty at any time? 3 or 4?
Yes.
So you need at least 4 good to excellent working vehicles that they can all use type of thing, and then they just rotate through them as people come in type of thing.
Right.
How often do you have 4 officers on?
If we're full staffed, it would be fairly often.
But you could have
While
community-
we're not full staffed, it would be generally 2 and at times 3.
If you had 4 on patrol, you could also have additional on community detail as well, right?
You have detail cars.
Right.
Correct.
So the fully marked patrol cars are the ones that the on-duty officers are using, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Any additional discussion? All right, we will vote. Mr. Hay, I keep starting with you, Mr. Hayes, every night, or every vote,
No,
so.
don't mess it up, because then you'll
well,
start forgetting where you are.
Yeah, when that happened last year, that threw the whole thing off, so. Mr. Hayes,
Yes.
Ms. Hirschberger,
I'm gonna say no, because I think it should be budgeted each year.
okay, Mr. Leary,
Warrant article.
No.
this year.
Ms. Douglas,
While I agree that it should be budgeted, I think there are other options for funding it, so I'm going to say yes to the removal.
okay. In the spirit of getting us to where we need to be and recognizing there are other ways that this could be purchased, I'm gonna say yes as well. Ms. Stevens,
Yes.
Mr. Barka,
Yeah, yes. Like, I think it should be in the budget as well, and we should be on a replacement plan, but yeah, to your point, we gotta get $250,000 somewhere.
I'd like to see it back in the budget next year.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. Yes.
That tower's, oh, I'm sorry, finish the vote.
Yeah, let's finish. Mr. Bork
Yes.
and Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
That tower is killing us.
That motion carries 7-0,
Additional thing.
which reduces line 760 by $64,290.
So,
Just
part
as a
of the
summary, real quick,
Not against the cap.
the action that we've taken just in police has reduced $151,424.
Right, but what I'm saying is, if we didn't have to pay that, we'd have,
can I
A
inquire?
hundred and
Well, in 3 years, we
fifty-one
don't have to.
Yes, $151,424. If you look at the police tab,
officer, what about the officer? That was 70,000.
That was 79,000.
Plus
79,
whatever
plus the 64
ancillary-
and the
And then the
overtime.
level setting.
If you look at the line, column AP on that tab, Miss White is keeping it real time there, so it's
Okay, I get
a little there at the
206.
bottom.
Do we need to put $1 back in there just so they can spend the money?
I kinda thought they could.
Yeah, they can move it back, right?
I was thinking about that, but I didn't wanna delay the
We're still on police. Any additional motions on police?
Yep, because
Mr. Ward?
along with the cruiser is also outfitting this cruiser, correct?
that
Dollars
was
for
part
it?
of the,
That's in the same number.
that
all
was the
the-
60.
Uplift is below it.
It's the uplift, yeah, the $20,000.
That's all of it, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So then, if I can ask the question then, because last evening, you accepted a grant for, I believe, $55,000 for a new vehicle?
We had already paid for the vehicle earlier in the year, when we
Right.
got the check, and so we had to accept it.
But that was for a new vehicle.
Yes.
So, I
It
guess
was
I'm just
the-
wondering, so you can buy one for 55,000, yet you're asking 64,000 now.
Oh, that was all, so the grant was only for 50,000, and we paid the rest of
The
it.
difference?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a 50,000, locality equipment grant, I believe it was called.
Was that originally paid for through the budget or through end-of-year funds?
What, the difference?
No, the original purchase, because it's basically a reimbursement, right? of
It's a
purchase.
reimbursement, so it came out of,
But did we-
another fund.
But was it originally funded from a budget line item or from like an unexpended, like, end-of-year funds? Do you know?
I believe
No,
it's
so
on,
he had applied for it at the end of, last year, and we didn't get the vehicle until this year, but we knew he had already applied for the grant. So,
Right,
when,
but-
when we get grant money, we charge it to a separate line out of the general fund. And so whatever was overspent would have come out of the general fund. Whatever the grant was gonna be for comes out of a different fund, and then we reimburse it, and,
with the grant.
yeah.
But what if we didn't get the grant?
Well, they applied for it, and we know where they're getting it.
Oh,
And then
okay.
if they don't
Oh,
get
so
it,
you didn't
yeah.
make the purchase until you knew you got the grant?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay. No, my question is like, oh, we made a purchase and we got a grant. I'm like, oh, well, that's awesome. That's
Yeah, no, he knew.
found money.
Yeah. No, you apply for the grants first.
Okay.
Still in, police, any additional motions?
Or leave them alone at this point.
He doesn't want to get.
All right. So we'll move to police support. We'll move to 421050, just in the spirit of honoring those who are still here. Any motions for 421050 police support?
Pretty straightforward.
Okay. Seeing none. Was there an additional one that you wanted to stay for this evening? I just want to respect your time.
Animal control.
Animal?
Control, like,
Sure,
I-
animal
I
control.
think there's not much to that one.
We will hit that one as well, if I can find it in my scrolling here.
Yeah, 4414.
Thank you. 441410. Animal control currently has a slight increase of $388 as it stands. Any,
And most of that's
Motions?
related to heating and electricity,
Correct.
which is
those are heating and electricity costs.
killing everybody's budgets.
Any motions on animal control? Seeing none? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, chief.
Let's do, let's come back to the beginning now, 4310. Mr. Brunel, you're planning on staying, right? I don't remember. Okay. Let's go to 4310.10, Board of Selectmen.
4130.
I'm sorry, 4130.10, Board of Selectmen. Thank you. it currently has an increase of 10,871 over last year, and most of that is attributed to insurance and wages. Questions, any motions on Board of Selectmen?
Not particularly, other than to say that health insurance is killing us. No offense, it's just like, as a whole, as a town, it's something that I think at some point we're really gonna have to wrap our arms around and say, what can we do? Like, is there anything we can do, or are we just gonna have to accept that health insurance is gonna cost, $45,000 in a couple of years, you
Just
know?
reduce the number of full-time employees.
Well, ultimately, that's what's gonna end up having to happen, right? Like, to Mr.
Unfortunately.
Taylor's point of view, right? You can only do so much, so at some point, if we're gonna have these awesome benefits, at some point, fewer people are gonna have them. Because there's a limited,
Right.
All right, I'm gonna move to 4130.30 town meeting. This one has a decrease as it stands of last year, $4,300. Any motions? Seeing none, keep us moving right along. 4140.10 town clerk. Currently at an increase
Have a
of,
motion on that one.
yes, sir, Mr. Taylor.
Line 140, overtime, reduce that by $150.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Taylor to reduce line 140 by $150. Do I have a second?
second that.
I'll give that one to Mr. Bork. So we have a second. Discussion.
Just looking at not see the increase year over year.
Where's our current spend at on
Clerk.
that?
Okay, it's 140. Got it.
Town clerk, overtime, we're currently over on that one.
Budget.
You know why we're that far over on it this year?
Down staff, in between hiring.
I said, didn't we add positions though at some
Yeah,
point?
yes, there's a part-timer that just started, but before they started, we had to fill those hours.
Hiring and training.
So it's not necessarily something going forward
It's
you
not
would
a
expect.
long-term issue. It's a short-term issue.
But I think they have 300 budgeted for that.
Yeah,
In 2020, we only spent $46. In 2021, we spent $487.
And I think it's a healthy line.
Any additional discussion?
And Mr. Leary, actually a quick question, because I put together my spreadsheet over the weekend, but it looks like there's now a note that there was a $150 budget cut. Was that done by the selectmen?
No, I
Or
think,
did you type that in when I mentioned
yeah,
it?
I think Miss White's adding those. She's adding those real time. I don't know if she's anticipating votes or, I think she's just
Messing with you?
keeping track of our motions that way, I think, is her
Sorry, am I
system.
messing with you over there?
All right, any additional discussion on the motion at hand?
Do you mind just repeating the motion?
Yeah, sorry. So, nope, the motion is to reduce line 140 overtime by $150,
Okay.
which was the increase that was asked. All right, if no further discussion, we will vote. Mr. Hayes,
Yes.
Ms. Hirschberger,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
No,
Ms. Douglas.
I mean, in the spirit of getting to the bottom, we need, sure, yes.
I'm a yes.
It's-
Ms. Stevens,
Yes.
Potatoes.
Mr. Barca,
Yes.
Mr. Bork,
Yes.
and Mr. Taylor.
support my people.
Yes.
I don't disagree with the number
I think
itself.
I heard you say yes, sir.
Yes, I did say yes.
Thank you. All right, that motion carries 8-1-0. That's a reduction of $150 to overtime. Any additional motions for 4140 town clerk?
I have another one. It would
Yes,
be
sir.
line 622, a reduction of $674.
Okay, I have a motion to reduce line 622 by, I'm sorry, could you say that amount again?
Yep. $674.
$674. Do I have a second?
Sure.
Second by Ms. Douglas. Discussion?
What's in that line? Sorry.
These are
Oh,
printer,
there
these
it
are
is,
printer cartridges.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. I did ask a question of Mr. Brunel about this. John, I don't know if you want to speak to this, why this went up as much as it did?
Yeah, so in years past, they were buying refurbed cartridges, so basically the ones you buy really cheap, they just put the toner back in. Because these are critical printers, they were constantly jamming, the quality of those cartridges were bad, we had to go back to official, authentic cartridges. They go through 2 a year, there's 2 printers, so they end up buying 4 a year for those printers.
Thank you. Additional discussion?
Is there some other method of providing the documents we need without using that many, like, can we email receipts or whatever?
These are registrations.
Registrations, marriage certificates.
Your budget.
It's
Certificates.
printing out budget.
Yeah.
No, that's mine.
Yes, we can reduce it.
I'm responsible for that printer, so don't cut mine.
You could take it out of my paycheck. Oh, wait.
There's not much we can do to reduce. The volume is the volume, and again, they go through 2, and as I was telling John David earlier, when the thing complains about toner, they sit there and shake the damn thing, they put it back in, they get 2 more weeks out of it, so
Yep.
they're doing their due diligence to try to keep that cost down.
Are auto registration bills printed on that printer as well?
So, remember, even if you go online, they still gotta print registration and mail it to you. So you have to have a physical registration still. So that's a very special piece of paper with this, the state seal and stuff on it, and that has to go to that printer.
So to
And that's what
summarize,
they're predominantly-
But the letter to say the letter that's mailed, it doesn't go through this one. Okay.
so to summarize, the main purpose of the increase in this line item was a shift from refurbished printer cartridges to,
To improve
No.
efficiency within the department, because you
Yep.
don't have to sit there shaking the stupid thing.
yep, agreed.
Oh, would this also
They are
reduce,
doing
breakdowns of the machine? I mean,
That's why it went back to the official cartridge, because they were jamming up all the time, so they were doing reprints, and then we do reprints and marriage certificate for, death certificates, it costs us more money.
And I assume service calls, like, do we?
Well, that service calls me, so you're getting that for everything. I go in there, get on the ground and start ripping stuff apart, but.
Any additional discussion? All right, we'll roll call this one. Mr. Hayes,
Yes.
Ms. Hirschberger,
No.
Mr. Leary,
No.
Ms. Douglas.
No.
I am a no. Ms. Stevens,
No.
Mr. Barca,
No.
Mr. Bork,
no.
and Mr. Taylor. Sure if we
Oh,
lost
did we
him.
lose
Is
him?
he still there?
We have lost you, Mr. Taylor.
Unmute.
Let's
His,
if he's still
his
there.
video went off too.
It was his motion, I think we assume it was a yes.
I'm gonna go ahead and hold the vote as it is not passing at 170, because that does carry. If there's an opportunity for him to come back and speak to that, we can, but it doesn't change the outcome. All right, any additional motions for town clerk?
So I do have one for line, 625 for the postage. If we mail the auto registrations, what I heard last time was that there were 500 mailed per month, and postage is what, 60 or 62 cents? I think it's, so, I would move for a reduction of 3720, well, whatever that, I'll say 3,700.
You're roughly
I
cutting
So-
it
believe
even.
is the annualized cost.
Sure,
So
I'll
we-
second the motion.
We have a motion to reduce line 625 by $3,700. Was that the amount
Yep.
that we said? We have a motion by Ms. Hirschberger. We have a second by Ms. Douglas. Discussion. And can you?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, the Wi-Fi cut out here. Can you just repeat what that motion was?
Yes, sir. And before we do that, we did take a vote on the previous one. We didn't have you. It failed 170. I can include your vote in the records if you would like. This was the
Sure,
vote.
I'd be a yes.
Thank you. Okay. This motion, so just to clarify, that one failed 270. This motion by Ms. Hirschberger was to reduce line 625 postage by $3,700. Seconded.
This was an idea that Miss Brienne brought up. I heard her say it to the selectmen as an option to cut, and I would be in favor of, I mean, it seems pretty clear. Car registrations are due on the month of your birthday, and, people will just know that they need to come in.
I don't know, I forget to pay my credit card bills and those come in, no, I
Oh,
don't.
you'll remember.
But
I
they're-
always remember.
Can you go
I
back?
don't forget, I do pay them, but man, sometimes it's like, oh no.
Can you go back to the math that you explained You
So
gave
how much is
numbers.
postage? Is it
I think
60 or
it's 60 cents.
Say
60 cents? Okay, so maybe I'm off a little. Okay, so it's
500
500
a month.
times
12.
0.60, we'll say. So it's
$3,600. Okay, thank you.
Is there a way to do like
300
an
times
opt-out
12 months. Oops, hold
There's
on,
an
my mouth.
opt-in for electronic, so.
That's what I mean. Like, if people want to opt in and save it that way, but
36?
please don't
Okay.
not send it to me. I need it on my refrigerator.
Does this postage, this says it's for renewal notices and miscellaneous correspondence, so does that include the actual registration that has to be mailed?
Those are tax bills, right?
And tax bill?
Does it include the registration, when someone does it over online and you get a mail registration to them?
Terry said she mails out 500 a month.
I do it.
I'm quite sure
So
Mr.
it's-
Taylor heard that too.
I think, no, there's a line item in tax for postage that has the tax bills in that.
And
So
other
that's my
towns-
question, is
other towns
this
are doing
just the optional renewal notice that a town does not
They're
need to
not
send?
sending out.
It is optional. They, yeah,
We're one of
many
the
other.
only, we're one of the only ones
Exactly.
Let
remaining.
me tell you, I get those emails from like, oh no, because
Tax
once we
bills?
get into it, I'm like,
Tax bills are sent out.
Yeah,
This
they
is-
have to
This
be.
is the.
Yeah,
This
they
is
do.
different, yeah.
This is just auto
To be
registration.
clear, the tax bill postage is in a separate, this is not hitting that. These are the renewals, yeah.
I'm just glad that
Renewal notices, sorry.
my husband and I are both in the same month. I can't screw it up too bad.
So actually, the math is $3,600, so, yeah,
Do you wanna amend your motion or keep it at 37?
I'll do the 36.
Alright.
Just-
So,
I'll
we'll-
second that.
so we have an amended to $3,600.
$100, you could've just kept it the same and said,
That's a
Sorry.
lot of roll calls I gotta do here.
Oh, sorry.
Alright, so,
That's true, we could withdraw it.
You can pull your
Wanna
amendment.
withdraw?
Okay, I'll pull my amendment.
$100 is not gonna
100.
break the bank.
Okay.
30, we have,
Be
any
accurate.
additional discussion? Alright, let's vote. Mr. Hayes,
Yes.
Ms. Hirschberger,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
No.
Ms. Douglas,
I'm sorry, but I have a feeling this will cause more problems and expenses with people not paying them, so no.
I am a yes. Ms. Stevens,
Yes.
Mr. Barca,
Yes.
Mr. Bork,
Yes.
and Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0. Reduction of $3,700 to postage.
Are there like automatic
Oh.
emails or
Did it go
something?
back
I'm
to
sorry.
37?
We did keep it at 37,
Oh,
yes.
sorry.
We removed the amendment.
Oh.
Any additional motions for town clerk? Just, if you're playing the math game along at home, if we go back to our tax cap, we are now sitting $96,347 over the tax cap. All right, let's move to, that was town clerk, let's move to 415010 accounting. This budget is up $10,958 from last year. There was an increase in the auditing services contract, which was a big chunk of that, as well as insurance and staff and wages. Any motions on accounting?
I do have a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Line 128, the stipend for treasurer and deputy treasurer, looking to reduce that by $2,000.
So I have a motion to reduce line 128 by $2,000. Do I have a second?
Sure.
Second by Ms. Douglas. Discussion?
What's your reasoning?
Yeah, say
Yeah.
that again.
This is what they
Just
get
looking
paid to do
to-
their job.
Sorry, go ahead, Mr. Taylor. What was your rationale?
Yeah, just in terms of, do we need a treasurer and a deputy treasurer? Looking to reduce the deputy treasurer or reduce the amount that the stipend is for the treasurer if we need both positions.
Are these contracted stipends?
They built
Yeah.
into their contracts, these stipends.
Like, why is it not built into their salary?
That is
They're
their
not,
salary.
that is
So
their
the
salary.
treasurer
That's what they
comes-
get paid to do their job.
Yeah, so the treasurer comes in every Tuesday and signs the checks. She has to reconcile with the bank, she has to reconcile with me. She has to do her own spreadsheets, where mine, at least I have somebody else that puts it into our software for us. But she has to, do all that. Any of the transfers that we have to do, because we only have one checking account. So any other funds, I have to upload transfers, she has to accept them, so she's there. probably 4 hours on a Tuesday. Now, the deputy, if the treasurer can't be there, you need somebody to sign the checks, you need somebody, to log in the information. I mean, somebody has to be there. I can't sign the checks. You
Is
have
there
to
a
have
reason why
somebody
the
there.
town administrator or the town clerk cannot be authorized to sign checks?
For that, I don't know. They've just always had the treasurer and the deputy since.
I mean, it's relatively, well, the town administrator we've had for a certain period of years, right? Is there any reason why?
I think it's a check and balance.
Yeah,
It's separated from the business function. If somebody's outside of the town comes in and does it, if you remember the.
Oh, no, that predated me, so I remember
That was
reading
sort of
about
started
it.
with sort of locking down these processes, and this process
Yeah.
put in place is the checks and balances. To make sure that funds are being approved, not being approved by Karen,
Yep.
being approved by somebody who's neutral, that knows that they're following those tracks.
Thank you. Yep,
And
thank you.
the town administrator approves the reconciliations. So ideally, you could have the finance person and the town administrator.
So reality is, it's
I mean, if
essentially,
the treasurer requirement is only about 4 hours a week, do we really need a deputy treasurer, that the treasurer can't find 4 hours during any given week? Or plan accordingly and make sure that then you load up as far as the week before if that person's gonna be away on vacation, and then,
yeah, that's just hard having,
backlog the rest.
the payroll has to get out, accounts payable has to, get out. If you're waiting until a Thursday or Friday for her to come in, it kinda defeats the purpose on having them done on Mondays and Tuesdays, so when she comes in on Tuesdays, it's done. I mean, I just think it's important.
Thank you.
at this
I mean, we've
point,
been in
it's
trouble.
checks
The
and
town's been in
balances.
trouble before, and
Any additional discussion?
Not that we
How
don't
many
trust
times do we have to use the deputy treasurer during a given year?
that I mean, I don't know, I guess depending, I know the, treasurer is planning on, she probably does a couple of vacations. I mean, if she had been out with COVID, or, I mean, it's hard to say.
Any additional discussion?
I don't know. I just,
That position pays about $6 an hour.
the treasurer,
Deputy?
see,
It's 208 hours a year, $11,000. It's between $5 and $6
She
an
only
hour.
comes in for 4 hours a week.
Yeah, I did that.
I feel
4
like there's
hours
gotta be a
times 50.
backup.
Might be less than
$55
that.
an hour.
If it's 9,000 instead of 11, I think it
$55
might even be less.
$55 an hour.
Yeah.
Because it's $11,000.
Either, well,
If it was 100 hours, that
$173
would
a
be
week,
$110 an
not an
hour.
incentive to not go on vacation.
So,
And that
any,
can be just when she's
Getting back to
in
the
here, she can work from home too.
go ahead, Mr. Taylor.
Let's even just say that, the deputy is $2,000. Let's say that, there's 10 weeks that we need to use the deputy. That's still $50 an hour if they're only coming in and filling in for 4 hours a week. For 10 weeks.
Sorry,
And I can't imagine that we need
You're
a
cutting out.
deputy assistant.
Scott, you're cutting out just a little bit. I don't know if you want to maybe video off for a few just to help.
Sure.
If you want to repeat what you said, we missed most of that.
Sure. So if we take a look at $2,000, and if we need to leverage that person 10 times during the year, that's gonna end up being 40 hours, because it's 4 hours a week. That's still paying $50 an hour.
But what you're doing is you're requiring one person to be in town every 7 days. And I don't think that $9,000 a year is enough of an incentive for somebody to sign up for that.
I think there has to be a backup person.
I think so too.
Any additional discussion?
Yeah, I'm sure the employees appreciate being able to, although, sign checks for like employee checks.
They sign payroll and accounts
Everything.
payable.
So, I mean, do we do direct deposits? Do you actually physically?
We do direct deposits, and we have to upload the direct deposit, she has to accept it. There's two people, so that's our side and
She's
that's their side.
electronically
So
signing it,
somebody
more or
has
less,
to,
All right.
somebody else has to do it besides us in the
Well, I
office.
was just trying to like say, is there a way to
Yeah.
streamline this? Since apparently
Yeah, I
everybody
mean,
wants
it's a
to go
big thing with the
electronic.
audit is to have your checks and balances.
In the grand scheme of things, considering how this can go very badly, very quickly, if we don't have appropriate checks and balances, it's essentially an insurance policy. And to me, there are plenty of other places to make a reduction. And to your point, if we reduce it to 1,000, then we end up with no deputy treasurer, because like, for $1,000, I'm gonna go do something else.
Yeah.
All right, let's call this one to vote. Motion to reduce by $2,000, Mr. Hayes.
No.
Ms. Hirschberger,
No.
Mr. Leary,
No,
Ms. Douglas.
No.
I am a no. Ms. Stevens,
No.
Mr. Barka,
No.
Mr. Bork,
No.
and Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
That motion fails 1-8-0. Any additional motions under 415010 accounting?
Can I just ask about, the ability to do deposits remotely? Have you looked into that? I mean, I know you know it's possible, but I'm wondering if there would be a cost savings if, I know you'd have to buy equipment, but it would also save on time.
Yeah, so I
And
checked with TD again,
travel.
and it's, I think he said it's about but he sent me the same email that he did back 2 years ago. So back 2 years ago, he forwarded me it, it was about $100, $110, say 100 a month to have, the machine, and that was the software, but then we would have a machine probably in town's clerk office and our office, because the treasurer does deposits to our other
It's
accounts.
$200 a month then, basically.
Probably, and then the tax collector, town clerk, they have to go to the bank when they have more than $1,500 in cash. So
Okay.
they could still go, especially during tax season, they could be going 5 days a week with that. We could do the checks, but they could still during tax time, you know, June, July, and then, November, December.
Just
be
for the
going to the
cash.
bank. Yeah, just for the cash.
People pay their taxes in cash?
That's shocking.
And registration.
actually, you can,
They do pay registrations in
Yeah.
I
cash.
was
do
behind,
anything in
I was in here when.
I would not pay the
somebody-
3% on a credit card.
money for concessions.
I'll pay.
Anything else on 4150 accounting?
Sorry, I need like another minute here to just think about this, cause I feel like I really wanna promote us becoming more digitally savvy, and utilizing,
Because Terry and I
Staff at
had
a
talked about it a
more
little bit, so
efficiently.
what would happen is, say we had to wait a week for her to go to the bank with the cash, we already have our checks deposited, she has a deposit slip for that day with its checks and cash. We can't do anything with it on our side, because we don't have a deposit slip to match her intakes for that day. So you could be waiting a week before we can even go through her stuff to enter it on our side. Come the end of the month, we could be just like, you know, you're not finding things as quick as you should or could if you're waiting that long to get stuff posted.
Maybe we need an ATM.
Jason tried that, never got it through.
I guess my question, maybe as a follow-up to that is there a way to deposit those checks electronically? I mean, that's the way. right?
There is a machine that you
yeah,
can
that's what we're
get
talking
and-
about, the
and
$100 a
scan
month.
through.
You can
It's the
just scan 'em
cash
in.
that
But
has
it's
to
the
go
cash
to the
that has to
bank.
go to the
It's
bank.
the cash,
Yep.
but could you do it every other day? I mean, at least it would cut it.
If it's over 1,500,
if it's
I'm
over,
only
it's gotta go
half
in
you
that
joking.
can't
day,
hold that
Right.
in
because of
hand,
what
right?
happened before.
Yeah,
I'm only
Yeah,
half
that's
joking
an
about an ATM
RSA.
machine, because at that point, it's not our, it's like, it's,
Derek, I have paid my taxes in cash.
Anything else on accounting?
that must have hurt.
No, I gotta think about
Just,
this.
just to
Maybe,
make them
maybe
count it
another
out.
time.
All right, let's move to 415020, information technology. I know Mr. Brunel is here. Help answer any questions. We will,
Want a microphone?
just as an FYI, where we stand for this budget currently is an increase of $25,115 from last year. A lot of that is around, I know Mr. Brunel explained, at least half of that has to do with software support that had annual increases associated with them, as well as some additional equipment.
I'm stunned, I don't have any motion on this one.
Motions around IT.
I was feeling generous, John.
Well, do you wanna hit up the questions that were asked?
Yeah, so, let's do that first, because that could take care of any potential motions. So there were some questions that, Ms. Stevens sent yesterday. I didn't get them over to Mr. Leary until later today. And
I
so-
didn't mail them to him until tonight.
Yeah, so that,
And we verbally
We can-
exchanged them, so we're
As I
good.
sat right here.
blame me as the chain for that one, because, but I do think there were some questions, that I'm gonna run through these quickly,
Yeah,
give
if
you an
you wanna
opportunity to
rifle
answer them, because they can address some of these potential cuts. The question, first question was, what type of connectivity does the cruiser have to the internet when on the road?
So the cars are equipped with a cellular gateway, basically. that provides 5G connectivity from the NDT out. I think the second part of your question is, can we
Smaller tablets that could
call it
work off the
tablets? Okay,
cruisers.
so that would require us to enable a Wi-Fi hotspot in the cruiser,
Okay.
and that's not part of the process today.
That would be more expensive.
I would have to replace those data units with it. And we looked at that in the past about how to extend, but most of the stuff that's going on, whether we're using a camera, maybe in the house, outside of the range of that Wi-Fi, depending where the car is parked and stuff like that. So it's-
But couldn't it like somehow, upload to the, like, why does that picture need to be immediately available to the internet?
which picture are we talking about?
Like if they take a picture of a house,
Sure.
and so right now, you take the cruisers back and all the data that they've accumulated while they've been out gets uploaded
Correct.
somehow, right?
Yep.
Why do those pictures need to be uploaded immediately? Why can't they just
They
be
don't
uploaded
need to
when
be
they?
uploaded immediately.
So why does whatever they're taking photos with need a cellular connection?
Well, it needs a cellular connection for phone calls
Well, don't you,
and other data requirements, like they'll have access to, in the future, they'll have access to their CAD system in the cell phone also.
yeah,
So when they're out of the cruiser, they actually can enter the case details into that. That's a future thing, but that's not for the immediate. They'll have access to message back to dispatch via that phone if they
You're
want
saying
to.
if they're away from their cruiser,
Yeah,
but yet not connected to some other Wi-Fi, they would need that cellular
they
service.
would need that, yeah, correct.
but are we not issuing them phones for,
We are.
so would the phone not have the option to have a hotspot capability?
The phone would, this doesn't change, so I think Kate's direction is not to have the phone have hotspot, have it be a Wi-Fi only tablet.
Oh, instead of this phone.
And again, that limits the range of what that Wi-Fi tablet can do. Yes, you could use a tablet, a nice bulky tablet, and take pictures, that's not gonna be very user-friendly. They wanna stop phone calls, the real reason is the phone calls in some respects, and any texting that goes on,
Right.
right? So, an officer in a cruiser may call a suspect. They don't want that officer using his personal phone. A lot of times you block the call, no one answers the call, right, that kind of thing. So that's one of the main reasons. And, the data service is part of the phone anyway. It's not gonna go anywhere. It's not gonna cost me any less to have that phone on the network. It's gonna be a $30 public safety network cost. That includes
Right.
data and telephone.
And I also think you'd want to keep them separate in case any of their phones or messages or anything were ever FOIA'd right to know request.
Right, and
You want to
that's-
keep
that's-
that off of their personal devices.
Absolutely.
And that's
I
the,
don't
that's the
want
legal,
them to
that's the legal reason for coming forward with this request to do that. So.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I do not like the idea of any business requiring somebody to use their personal phone. However, so are there any officers right now that decline to give their phone number out?
Decline to give their phone number out? No, they
Right.
use their personal phones today. Significantly.
So there's nobody that has said, I don't wanna give my phone number to this,
No.
like, victim or anybody to.
No, it's not that.
Oh my
They'll-
gosh, they
they'll-
should not be.
Well, they'll,
No,
they'll
but I'm
get-
saying,
so
do
there is
they
a,
have desk phones?
they have desk phones they use, but if they're on the road, and they're reaching out to a CI, it could be any like that, they may block their number. I don't know what they do, to be honest with you. They may make the phone call. They have a relationship with a lot of people in town, too. But again, the phone is still subject to FOIA, and it's their personal
Right.
phone.
And part of that too is if they go to a scene of something, they're taking pictures with their personal phones.
No,
which they
that's what I'm
shouldn't be
saying.
doing.
I don't think any personal phone should be
Yeah.
used on the job.
right.
I'm trying to understand why they need a device that needs immediate connection all the time if they have desk phones and they're able to get data through their cruiser. So I just don't understand why that immediate connection needs to happen, why they can't email
There's no
over
way,
or
there's
something
no,
from the cruiser.
there is no separation between, on a smartphone, you have to have data. So it's gonna be part of telephony. It's not gonna cost the town any cheaper. I can't buy just telephone only. It's bundled with the data, because most telephone services now are going over the data side. It's not
Right.
real cellular, but.
But, so you're saying because the cruiser is not a Wi-Fi hotspot,
That's one
it doesn't
reason.
actually get like emails and
No, they
things
don't.
right now.
So the cruisers are predominantly, the only connection they're doing, we don't allow today Dremel access to the internet. It's pretty locked down. They have a dedicated system on the computer that they have in the cruiser that communicates back to the station and in our internal record systems, and it's just that data traffic. There's no browsing the internet, watching Netflix.
But is
or
it
anything.
capable to do?
It is capable of doing it, yes.
So we're already paying for some sort of capability to be on the internet where they could access their emails. We could maybe have, aren't there phone numbers that you can get over the internet?
You can't take a phone call.
No, isn't there?
That would
I thought
require
there
me
was
to
a
put
way-
a speaker in the computer, a microphone on the
I
computer.
think the issue would be if
And now
they
you're making
left-
that computer, you're making that computer defocus on what its primary role is. And its primary role is to be able to access critical records while they're driving around and that kind of thing. It's very, again, the interface is very static. They know where everything is, everything's organized in a certain way. You're asking them to close this application, bring up a voice application to make a phone call and those kind of things. Honestly, they'll come in the station and make most critical calls like that, because they really want the call recorded, usually. They'll do that. It really was about, we wanted a smartphone so they can take the pictures. They're not gonna be uploading it out in the road. They're gonna get back here, probably plug it in for a faster upload.
So why does it need a cell connection?
It has to be a telephone.
Do they not make iPods anymore?
No.
I was afraid of that.
I know, I'm thinking back to the iPod Touches I got my kids for
Right,
a
you
long time ago.
You can still get
Yeah,
an
where it was
iPad.
only a
You
Wi-Fi.
can get a Wi-Fi on the iPad, yeah.
Right?
You can buy an
But
iPhone. You can buy an iPhone and just
I have no
not.
idea what it is.
But I think the issue
data, well, it'll
becomes
just be-
if they leave their cruiser
But it's the data part of it.
to
Oh, really?
do
Yeah,
something,
just work
they're
on
not
Wi-Fi.
able, they wouldn't have a device that's connected to
I
something.
learned something.
They have a
They
radio.
can be hotspots, but that
but-
still doesn't solve that issue.
So if my laptop is not cell phone connected because I'm cheap. I go to the cabin, I use my phone hotspot to connect.
Yeah.
Is there any reason why our officers can't have a phone that allows that to connect? Like, do you need to hotspot?
What are we connecting to it?
Well, if your computer in the car has a hotspot and your phone has a hotspot, do you need both?
You
The
said
the phone, the computers are all dedicated on the public safety network.
Okay.
They need to have a static IP, which allows them to communicate back to the station. Hotspots, we won't get that. A lot of times, tethering on a phone is limited. You have a limit of how much you can actually use. We generate 5-6 times what your phone will be allowed to do that. Kate, with regards to data, you're concerned about the data service. You're okay with the phone, but the data service is the issue. The data service is part of the pool. It's no extra cost for us to have the data service turned on. Every phone gets access to a pooled data service for the town. That's where the data service comes from. It's still $30. It's still $30 per phone, every phone.
But they're new phones.
They are new phones, so I had to buy
Right,
phones.
that
yes.
we don't currently have. So it's not like we're currently paying for that data pool. right
We
now.
have a
are
data,
adding
we
costs
have
to
a
that
large data pool today already. That's the Verizon bill that's part of the Verizon bill.
I think she's
Aren't we
targeting
adding?
the $5,280 that we're adding in data.
That's right, because that's $444 a month for those 11 or so phones. That's their monthly service charge, which is about $30.
Yeah.
That's irrelevant to data. The data is a factor of it, but they get access to the
Yeah, I
pool.
think she's saying though, if all it's doing is taking pictures, then we don't even need data. It can just be a camera. And then come in, plug it in.
They have a camera today,
Yeah.
and they don't use it. It's inconvenient. They have a
Yeah.
phone, and that's what they use. So they use, so
But,
the
so that's
department,
what,
the
we're
department
asking
wants.
for $5,000 for their convenience, which is when
No,
the tax
you're
cap is
asking for
so
the
much.
$5,000 to separate their personal and their town business.
It's not required to use their personal phone to take pictures.
Correct, but if they go on a scene, it doesn't matter. If an officer on a scene and all he has is his personal phone, it can still be FOIA'd, even if they have no concept that it's actually been used to take evidence. They're gonna wanna know what they were saying, were they joking with somebody about an accident? There's all kinds of
No,
reasons why
yeah,
they'll
that's
ask.
what I know. I do not want them using their personal phones for anything.
They have to
if
be able
they
to
don't
make
have
phone calls.
What phone
So-
calls are so important?
There's a lot of times they will not transmit certain traffic over the radio. They'll call the station, and that'll
Okay.
be a dialogue. They'll call county, they'll call a seating officer who's responding, provide some details that they don't want over the public air.
So the radios don't connect to the station?
It does, but you can listen to the radio if you want to. You can
Okay.
hear it as a citizen.
There's an app you can listen to.
Yeah, you can listen
Okay,
to
so
it.
they-
So there are certain times, there's certain communications, let's say they're doing an investigation where they're staking something out. They may take that whole communications off the radio and do it over the phone because they can't hear it. So, again, another reason why, right? But
Okay.
an officer's gonna have a phone in their pocket one way or the other. We just want them to have the town phone in their pocket that they can use to make phone calls, take pictures,
so that's all isolated from the voyeur
So-
issue.
I agree with you. That last piece of taking the communication off the radio, that's, all I'm saying is that that's the first need that I've heard for the station cell phones.
Okay.
So in the interest of time, let's hit,
Sure.
Ms. Stevens had a couple additional questions.
Yep.
Could Google Meets be used instead of what I'm assuming is WebEx?
So, yeah, we could use Google Meet, and we've tried it in the past. It doesn't let us run long meetings like this, at least the level we have today. So,
You get this new level?
maybe. The problem is we're so used to, we have an infrastructure that's integrated WebEx. The WebEx cost is actually embedded in our telephone service. It's actually no additional cost to us. So we have a contract. So even if you say, we'll go use that, the cost is the same. It's not additional. I actually laid it out so you knew it was in there, but the telephone costs, we have a contract because of our uses of telephone, the telephone system within the town. They gave us, I think, 3 seats of WebEx. That's what we're leveraging today. Okay, so it wouldn't reduce
Okay.
anything.
What is Google TV used for?
Google TV is a streaming service that we use. So it's used by the police department, the fire station. It's also used during an emergency. So that brings in basically over-the-air television over the internet. We pay for one user, and we leverage it about 5 different places.
Just one user.
Yeah, it's just one user.
And then the last question, and then we'll move to any motions. Line 630, hardware, there's a couple of Cisco contracts. Are any of those one-time expenses?
No, those are all reoccurring maintenance contracts. So we have talked, the board and I, we've talked about potentially pulling them in and maybe try to do a multi-year and pay it this year if we possibly can. But that kicks its problem 3 years down the road, so. But there are no one-time costs there.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, we will entertain any motions for information technology.
I have a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Taylor.
Line 342, domain services, looking to reduce that line item by $350.
We have a motion to reduce line 342 by $350. That was your amount?
Yes.
I'm assuming that's the rec commission's.
I will second
A
that.
motion by Mr. Taylor. We have a second by Ms. Douglas. Mr. Taylor? Any
Yep, so
discussion?
that would be the non-.gov sites.
The who?
The what?
Non.gov sites.
Non.gov sites.
Well, let me just explain that for a second. So we have .gov, which is the town overarching site, but the police department and fire department have a .com site. And that's just been tradition, the way they've been doing it. They have always done it that way. All their sites are branded that way. All their documentation's branded that way. So if we force them off of their custom sites, we'd be incurring a whole lot of costs for letterhead and all that stuff. And redoing cars, because if you ever look at the barcode on the back, that's their site. So,
Additional discussion?
And just the follow-up item that I'm gonna have, it's not just the 350, then at that point it's the website hosting as well. So there is additional savings there. I get that there would need to be rebranding, but I just don't see the need for those .com sites.
I don't know that I realized LitchfieldPD.com was even a thing.
yeah. There's their site.
I usually go to those sites through the nh.gov ones.
what I
The
do,
department
yeah.
drop down.
Yeah, it goes over, yeah.
So
I was
I,
wondering if the fire ones were just to keep it as, because like litchfieldfire.com doesn't take you anywhere. Is that
Right,
just to prevent other people?
that's their email domain, that's how they get their email. They had
Oh,
a site that was
okay.
retired, and we haven't brought it back up, we actually put it under the town, but it's really their email address, so if you were gonna retire the hosting, then go ahead and retire the hosting, but the email addresses have to stay. They have to have their separate identities.
That's under
from
the
.gov.
domain services.
Correct.
is there any reason why they can't have the .gov though, other than it's a pain in the neck to change emails?
No, it's just, that's their identity, and that's how the state knows them, and that's all that stuff. And it's not, again, it's not uncommon, every police department has a email address that's dedicated to them,
I mean,
and same thing with the fire departments.
do we actively promote LitchfieldPD.com and LitchfieldFD.com?
So FDD.com doesn't actually have a website,
Oh.
that's just their domain.
But
That's
we're
just for
paying,
their-
we're paying for website hosting services for that one.
No,
It
it's
says
actually,
300.
it's actually
Oh.
one more year it's actually retiring. So it's 4 sites that are there for web hosting, but it's actually the fire station. It's called the litchfieldfirestation.com.
So if we're
This is
not,
the-
if it's retiring, can we, I
This
mean,
is
can
the
that one
last-
go down to 900?
Last year of the contract, it will go away.
So that's a contracted services.
Yeah, we branded it for 3 years.
Any additional discussion on the motion to reduce line 342 by $350? Okay, take a vote. Mr. Hayes,
No.
Ms. Hirschberger,
No.
Mr. Leary,
No.
Ms. Douglas,
No.
I'm a no. Ms. Stevens,
No.
Mr. Barca,
No.
Mr. Bork,
No.
and Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
Motion fails 1-8-0. Additional motions for information technology.
I have a second one.
Yes, sir.
Line 342, website hosting, reduce that by $900.
Just, you cut out for a second, just to clarify, line 342, website hosting
Reduced
service.
by 900.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Yeah, reduced by $900.
Reduce line 342 by $900.
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
We have a second by Ms. Douglas. Discussion?
Again, just additional areas that we just don't need. And, you know, when I take a look at one of these budget tabs that has, you know, a sizable increase, and we can't even get little things knocked off of there. Meanwhile, we keep tallying up more and more items, especially with like the communications tower and things like that. At some point, this is going to overtake some of the bigger departments.
So is there a possibility to start a plan to phase out the .coms? I mean, obviously,
So
if they're branded and their identity is tied to that, I get that, but is there a way to say the next 2 to 3 years, we're moving everything government to the .gov? To start a phase out plan? Or
So we
phase-
already got past the domain question. I would prefer you leave the domains the way they are.
Okay,
I'm
Kinda.
happy with forcing me to rebrand the whole websites and get them all recustomized and migrate them under the .gov, if that's the desire, but that's, you know, it'll take a year to get it done.
well, like I said, I'm not of necessarily the opinion it needs to be done, but if there were a plan to say, at one point, we didn't broadcast all our meetings, and we said, at starting a certain point, we're gonna start phasing that in. And now nobody here remembers a time when there weren't broadcast. So if we say, in the next 3 to 5 years, we're gonna move everything government to the government domain and websites, would that not be a feasible plan? Potentially. I'm not saying I support this right now.
I'm happy to entertain it.
Okay.
One
I
less
like
site
it.
for
I
you.
think it's cleaner and easier, but are we contracted for that as well?
No, I have one more year, basically. You're gonna force me to break the contract, or at least have to still pay it next year out of my bottom line versus if I.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying, I'm not necessarily supporting this. I want the discussion. If it's not feasible this year, but then next year, when instead of re-upping a contract, we could start moving away.
I will, for web hosting, or for website hosting, I will commit to next year this will be just the one site. Now, I will say that the one site may cost me a little bit more because I gotta turn on additional services to split the sites up, but it won't be the.
Be
whatever
less
it
than
is.
$1,200.
You still have to keep the domains for the emails.
I do have to
and
keep the
stuff like that,
domains,
too. You
yeah, and
can't-
I'm
you can't
not
change
at-
all
That's
the
a bigger,
emails.
that's a
Yeah,
bigger
and
ship.
to be honest with you, the domain cost, the big one is the .gov addresses. They cost me $400 a pop. And I heard I heard it was gonna go back up next year, they haven't told me what it is, it may be $600 a pop.
So do we move everything to .com?
So I'm gonna be over, I'm gonna be under budget or over the budget anyway. And I have no control over that, .gov is under the state, under the US government, so.
Any additional discussion on the motion?
Just how do I phrase this? Is there value in holding on to the Litchfield PD or Litchfield FD, I guess, name or website for search purposes so that, like, you know, when somebody searches for it, they're finding the right Litchfield Fire Department or the right police department,
Yeah,
so
if
that
you
they're
leave-
not
Yeah, if you.
subject to fraud.
If you leave the domains alone, which I'm asking you to do, they'll be sub-search. So if they go to litchfieldpd.com, they'll just throw them under nih.gov/pd. So they'll get there. I need the domains in place for email is my primary thing.
Right.
We do all of our access controls within the town are based on their domain. We have, the fire department has their own little bucket, the PD has their own little bucket, the government folks have their own little bucket. So, that's more important than me hosting 3 or 4 different sites.
All right. Let's take a vote. Mr. Hayes, motion to reduce by $900. Mr. Hayes.
I'm a no.
Ms. Hirschberger.
No.
Mr. Leary.
No.
Ms. Douglas.
Not currently, no.
Right, not this year.
I'm a no as well. Ms. Stevens.
No.
It's back next year.
Mr. Barca.
No.
Mr. Bork.
No.
And Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
Motion fails 180. Anything else for information technology?
No one else has anything? I got one last one, line 630, equipment,
That was my
a
next one.
reduction of $2,000.
So I have a motion to reduce line 630 equipment maintenance by $2,000. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Second by Ms. Douglas.
I was gonna be cutting that more, but
You can amend it.
Discussion?
Oh, please, feel free, Mr. Berg, if you would like to amend mine, by all means.
I'd like to amend yours to 7,500.
I have a motion to amend to reduce line 630 by $7,500. Do I have a second on
For
the
discussion, yes.
second by Ms. Douglas? So discussion on the amendment. To amend.
And the 2 areas that I pointed out are basically, parts, which was 5,000, and video and audio recorders, software and hardware, 2,500.
So that would be lines 34 and 35 in the spreadsheet.
May I ask a question? What am I supposed to do? These are contracted services.
So this goes back to the original conversation, like, we just need to get to 251, and I'm looking at technology, it's up 25,000 right now, and I know you're gonna need the parts, John, and I know they're gonna find the parts for you, or find the monies to get the parts.
Again, they're contracted services. So, the video and audio coders, that's software and hardware, that's the maintenance contract for maintaining the, audio and in-house recorders. So, that's that.
John, in
Yep.
just a side conversation, in lieu of 630, everything that's in 630 are contracted services, correct?
The only thing that's not contracted services, well, I wouldn't say contracted service, the only things that are not contracted, I'll list them out. The so-called contracted computer services, you can take that away, I'll give you $2,000. It's gonna hurt, but I'll give you the $2,000. Let's see, what else? The firewall maintenance, that's a contract service, the video and recording is a contract service. Computer parts and UPS, that's all consumable parts that I go through every year, and every year it gets worse and worse, and those are the parts.
And that specifically was the line item that I targeted my $2,000 cut, by the way.
Okay. And then, the Cisco maintenance, that's a contract service. The NetApp is a contract service. Townwide door security, I believe it's $890 is the contract service, that's our software renewal. And then the rest of it is what we've had for repairs over the years. This is pretty much a running average of what we do for repairs. Okay?
Then I'll amend my amended, or withdraw my amended then, because I didn't realize
My
that the
second.
one that I pointed out that was contract, I didn't.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, I'll give you one.
Okay, well, that brings us back
so
to the 2,000.
we're gonna withdraw the amendment to reduce 75, so that's off the table. The second was withdrawn as well. We're back to our original motion of reducing line 630 by $2,000. Any additional discussion? I mean, Mr. Brunel has already given it to us.
So one thing that I would ask is if it could be noted on some of these, like clearly put contract on, like, maybe in your column where you have all the other IT costs and renewal quotes and stuff, to clearly indicate that it's a contract, because I know I personally am like,
Some of them say it.
but.
Yeah,
Some of them
say-
say
some
it, like
say
you've
it.
linked to the renewal quotes and
Right.
stuff in there. Those are pretty straightforward.
See, that,
One other, I
that might
mean,
be my only major comment. If those could just be clearly designated, that'd be awesome.
one other area that I guess, if you wanna try to do some more, cause I'm happy to give some more back. So in the area where public safety, communications and maintenance, right? So as I explained during the budget presentation, The original agreement they wanted to come back was $20,000. We kind of negotiated it down to 10, and the breakup is a $6,000 response contract. And the rest was what we estimate the T&Es are gonna be for any of the maintenance outside of those contracts. In talking back to the vendor, actually was talking to him yesterday, I think we can reduce it by another $2,000.
Oh, wow.
So, reduce it by $2,000.
Where was that one?
That's 10,000.
Is,
That's public
Row
safety.
39.
row 39 in the spreadsheet, so,
Is that on top of Mr. Taylor's $2,000?
Yeah, that's fine.
so
I'm never happy about it, but
make a,
So amend the motion to be
make a
4,000?
motion to amend to 4,000. Have a second?
Yes.
Second by Ms. Douglas. Any additional discussion?
Getting close to my 7,500.
Getting close, Brent. We're at a
the only,
$4,000.
the only thing I will say is that when come in 2024, I may come back and say, put it back. It's, if, we don't know what that cost is
Right.
gonna be exactly, so.
Fair.
It was a good estimate. I nailed it down with them.
I appreciate your willingness to
Yep.
tighten up
Find
your,
opportunities.
yes.
I think
Eh.
this also sort of still, it follows the same logic as the cruiser, where maybe some of this, cause some of this is hardware, maybe some of that could be funded through ARPA or something.
Well, they're not one-time costs.
That
that's
would
the
be,
problem.
that would
No,
be
I know, but
the
neither is the cruiser.
line below that.
Yeah, I'm not, I don't agree with with the cruiser thing, but
So,
that's
any
not my job.
additional,
So I'm saying I expected to see,
Any
see it in 2024, right?
additional discussion? All right, we're gonna vote to amend. Mr. Hayes,
The amendment was to reduce by four
the
thousand.
amendment is to reduce to 4,000.
I'm a
Yes, sir.
yes. Thanks,
Yes.
John.
Ms. Hirschberger.
Yes.
Mr. Leary.
Yes.
Ms. Douglas.
Yes.
I'm
with
a yes.
With a thank you.
Yes. Oh, sorry. I forgot.
Stevens.
Go ahead.
Mr. Barca.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Bork. And Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
All right, that carry, we are the 900 to amend. So now the motion is to reduce line 630 by $4,000. Take a vote. Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
Ms. Hirschberger.
Yes.
Mr. Leary.
Yep.
Ms. Douglas.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Ms. Stevens.
Yes.
Mr. Barca.
Yes.
Mr. Bork.
Yes.
And Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
That carries 900. It's the third time, Ms. Douglas. We were all in agreement.
I know, right?
And we've
You
reduced
should cherish.
reduce that one by $4,000, line 630. Anything else on information technology?
Oh, but everybody should buy lottery tickets tonight.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you, John.
I have no this for my fortune cookie.
Thank you very much.
What's our total reductions?
We are currently sitting $92,347 over the tax cap. Rough math, we reduced about 160K.
I don't have 160K to give you, so no more.
That's basically your whole budget.
No, you're done. You better run.
All right, we're
We
gonna
have
move on.
740 next.
We're gonna move on. Seeing nothing else for information technology, I am gonna pause for a second and entertain a motion to extend tonight's meeting by 30 minutes.
So moved.
A motion, second,
Sure.
discussion. My rationale is I feel like if we can stay here until 10, as much as I do not want to, we can get a good chunk of some of these knocked out.
Did you want that?
And to have adequate time for the conversation that I know we don't want to kick again on the 27th
Right.
with around the RSA. So that's my logic behind it.
Oh, you said 30 minutes. That'll
I
take
meant-
it to 9:45.
I'm at 30 minutes beyond 9:30. Sorry, to 10 o'clock. That's what I meant.
Okay. I am okay with that motion being, that was what I said originally.
All right, so a quick vote on that. Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
Hirschberger.
I'm just saying no, cause I was here till 10
Perfectly entitled to that. Mr. Leary.
I'm a no. I get up at 5 in the morning.
Douglas.
Yes, because I
I'm
don't go to bed till late.
I'm a yes. Ms. Stevens.
Yes.
Mr. Barca.
Grudgingly, yes.
Mr. Bork. Making me count here. And Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
Thank you. That
Do we get a vote?
carries 630. All right.
With apologies to those who'd rather go to bed early.
All right, let's move on to
I'll call you in the
41
morning.
4150.40 tax.
Sadly, I'm probably.
Tax collection, currently has an increase, thank you, John. It currently has an increase of 16,000, and a majority of that are attributed to wages, insurance.
I'd like to make a motion to reduce 140 by $150.
Motion to reduce line 140, which is overtime, by $150. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Douglas. Discussion?
Does that mirror the previous cut?
Yes.
Yes.
Take that away.
Is this also split between the two budgets?
How much is it by again?
It is, yes,
$50.
$150.
It's only $300 for the
Any
whole
additional
thing.
discussion? Take a vote. Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Ms. Hirschberger?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
No,
Ms. Douglas?
This is taxes. I'm gonna go no.
I'm a yes. Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Barca?
Yes.
Mr. Bork?
Yes.
And Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0, and that's a $150 reduction to overtime. Any additional motions for tax collection? Okay. Move to 4152.10, reevaluation of property. Has a heavy increase of $120 over last year's budget. Any motions? And essentially, this is a contracted service, which is the bulk of that, and then the assessing software, which has an annual increase associated with it. Pretty straightforward. Any motions? Seeing none. Move to 4153 legal. This one does not have an increase. Any motions?
We doubled it this year.
Killed on that one this year.
Okay, seeing none, we will move to 4155 personnel. This one currently stands at an increase of $47,469 over last year. Again, a lot of that, pretty much all of that, attributed to retirement.
But the reduction of in police ought to have an impact on this one.
I have.
So-
Write that down, we'll change that.
Yes.
We don't have workers' comp yet, but I believe it's supposed to go down.
Yes.
That's line
Who knows
row
how much,
26.
but- Yeah, yeah. 6260.
You're anticipating that 86,473 going down.
That's what
Yeah.
Lana said, yeah. So we got our unemployment, we got our property liability. Workers' comp wasn't complete yet.
And to Ms. Douglas's point, based on the cut earlier, we will see some reductions here,
Yep.
based on that as well, some small ones.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so then we can revisit it next week. if we
I
have the other-
agree. Do you anticipate having the workers' comp next Thursday? Not sure.
Hopefully.
Okay. Let's come back and visit this one next week, if everybody's okay with that. We'll have those updated numbers, as well as hopefully workers' compensation insurance.
Can we just go, I'm sorry, just go back to legal and just.
Yep.
I'm just curious, who made the proposal for 18,800?
Me, because I just did a 3-year average, and when we first did the budget, we're way over this year, what's going on?
Is there a contract
best.
next year?
For them to go up.
Is the contract this year, next year, or the following year?
For
For the police officers?
2024, I think. Is it 20?
2024.
Alright, so it's not, so when I was
So
looking
it's,
at
we'll
it,
start next year to go 20.
so right, so next year the negotiations start.
But again, so this year's expenses, it's not the norm.
Right.
No, but we don't know if it's gonna carry into next year.
Oh, good lord.
So your 3-year average that you originally proposed was based on 2019, 2020, and 2021,
Yeah.
not including the,
But, so what are we carrying right now? 18, 25?
So we also approved 50,000, I believe, for the Pennachuck
Oh,
East.
PFOA.
That
That was
was
a warrant article.
2021, so did that, that would have been.
That was a warrant article, a non-lapsing.
So that's a different line,
Yeah.
you're saying?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So I'd like to go back to legal then and make a motion to reduce legal expenses by 3,500.
so a motion by Mr. Bork to reduce 4153 legal by $3,500. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Second by Ms. Douglas. Discussion?
And just looking at past years, I mean, I realized this year was out of the ordinary, but the few years we have here as far as expenses, it doesn't even come close.
I think though that when we've had contracts, they are on the order of 25,000. So if negotiations start next year, then we need to have money available for the negotiation.
What year was the last contract negotiated?
The 2021. That was a
They'll start negotiating next year.
So it
So
was
it'll
it was
be about-
2021, it was only $11,000 in legal expenses.
Oh, I was looking at the budget, sorry.
Right.
What?
It's probably
2019 was a higher one, it was 25,607.
Well, so PFOA is listed in here.
Yeah, I probably
You see
just
that?
didn't change that, but this is,
Okay.
cause we had it in there, and then we did a warrant article a couple of years ago, a non-lapsing one. So when you look at our budget reports, you'll see that, down at the bottom.
Okay, so just an error
Because-
in the
alright.
description.
Well, I mean, I have, like, I dug out last year's, I mean, 2018 was 44,000, 2019 was 25,600, 2020 was 19,600. So, it depends on how
And
amicable.
2021 was 11,000.
Well, that's, I can't explain that, but that, based on these numbers, that's an anomaly and not the rule. So,
We were good that year.
everybody got along and sang Kumbaya that year.
What's the 3-year average, Carrie?
Oh, I mean, it's in, is it in this one?
It's 1880.
I mean, that's the 3-year from 19 to
Okay.
21, it doesn't
Yeah.
include 22, she's going back beyond
Oh,
19,
sure,
which
sure.
would
Yeah,
actually
we're at
raise it, I
that.
think,
Not
cause
right
those
now.
years were higher.
29,
Or I have us in.
So, I mean, if we had a contract, you said we had a contract in 21 with negotiations?
No, I'm sorry, it looks like probably 19, cause 19 was
Well,
25,607.
the year before that was 43,800, so, or 43,900.
4153.
So,
Actually, if this year's 50,000, that 25,721 is probably the real 3-year average.
So,
yeah, I'm thinking 25 is
Yeah.
where it's typically been. And
So you're way overspent.
yeah.
I do think it's
So we're at 50.
unfortunate how much we
Looking to
spent.
get to the number.
Say that again, Kim, sorry.
So currently you're at 50.
Yeah,
Currently
well,
we're
we
at
all
50.
know why that is.
Right.
So, and that's hopefully not something that should be repeated, and not something we should budget for.
So while we're throwing like 3-year average, is there a reason why we don't see 3 years of actual expenses on the budget?
I'd have to, I know that last year that
Columns.
did.
What's that?
Oh,
Just in
yeah,
the columns,
can-
you mean?
Sorry, you can open.
You've got
The
20, you've
tab
got,
it just makes, right.
Yeah,
I
there you
just
go.
open.
Yeah, 20 and 21.
now you can see it.
Or you can open,
I could,
yeah.
I think they're trying to
Well, I
keep
don't
it.
know. They have to have
one
that in your.
Well,
View.
get rid of
You
the
just have to,
approved budget.
You have
They don't have
20,
Oh,
editing
see the
rights to
actuals.
open
Right,
it,
we're
but
talking actuals.
now it's.
you have 2020 on there and 2021, and then you have the 2022 current spend today. Is that what you're saying?
But I don't understand, there's a couple of budgets within the budget that do show a 2019 actual, a 2020 actual, and 2021.
well, it's in the comments.
Yeah, I mean, I can open them. I just, when I do it, it's easier for me to shorten it, and then I kind of forget
So-
to go back.
Right,
Why
but
you download it and then,
If you download it, you can open it, yeah.
Yeah.
You can make a copy of it and then you can do it yourself. But you
Right.
want to see
that's why mine's all colored.
All right, I want to bring us back to the motion at hand, which is to reduce 4153 by $3,500. Any final discussion?
I appreciate the intent, but I think I'm comfortable with the number in this one.
Okay, we'll take a vote. Mr. Hayes,
Because of our tax cap, I'm gonna say yes on this one.
Ms. Hirschberger,
I think we need it, so I'm gonna say no.
Mr. Leary.
Bottom line budget.
No,
Yeah, you're right.
Sorry, did you say no?
no.
Ms. Douglas?
I'm gonna say no also. I mean, again, we can come back later with a bottom line number, but no for now.
I'm gonna say no as well. Ms. Stevens?
No.
Mr. Barca?
No.
Mr. Bork?
Yes.
And Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Motion fails.
So loud.
Motion fails 3-6-0. All right. We had moved to personnel. We said we're gonna kind of table personnel. We'll get updated numbers on some of those line items, as well as hopefully workers' comp insurance, numbers going down by next Thursday. So with that, we're gonna move to 419110 planning, which has an increase of $641 over last year as it currently stands. Any motions, and that is
Salary.
tied to salary, thank you. Yep. Any motions for planning board?
Well, I wanted to, while we were in the meeting, I finally got my answer to Mr. Taylor's question, although I think his internet cut out.
No, he's just on, he's.
He
I'm
operates
stuck.
the-
Oh, okay, great. All right. I just wanted to clarify because you were asking about our contracted planners' attendance to the CIP meetings, and the way that those are funded right now is that it's all coming from this $18,000 line, but we actually have two separate contracts on top of this 18,000 that are not in this budget right now, that are separate for the CIP planning and the impact fees planning. So, and the hours associated with those are attached to those contracts. However, the money is all coming from this line 392. So we actually are contracted right now for, if we were to spend the full 18,000, which we haven't, plus, I think it was 5,000, no, 4,500, for the impact fees and the CIP. So, but what I'm saying is,
the wrong
the
direction.
current year though, all of the money is still coming from this 392, and we still haven't hit the 18,000. So,
So
I
what
think
I'm-
we could entertain that contract to be the maximum allowed per that contract. Just based off the 3 years average, we could take the chance to reduce that by a couple of thousand.
Is that a motion?
I don't know if I'll get kicked out if I make that motion.
I mean, fair enough, would not ask you to do
But
that.
I wanted the committee to have all the information.
So,
Appreciate the transparency.
the report I have is dated 9/26. Do we know what the current spend is on that planner?
Yes.
Okay.
So, the balance remaining, the current spend is $8,078, with $9,921 remaining.
Alright, so
And
he,
2,250 of that is the impact fee and CIP contracts.
of the 8,000?
So it's been a slow year for the planning board.
Oh.
That's what
Right,
it
so I was trying to figure out what the monthly burn rate is and how close we are. Okay.
You were saying in total, those two are a little over 2,000.
Right, and
remaining.
those should be, if all goes according to plan, those should be finished by the end of this year.
I'll make a motion to reduce line 392 by $2,000.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Taylor. Any additional discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Mr. Hayes,
Yes.
Ms. Hirschberger,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Ms. Douglas.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Ms. Stevens.
I'm gonna abstain from this.
Fair enough. Mr. Barca,
Yes. Yes.
Bork, and Mr. Taylor.
Scaredy cat.
I abstained last year too. Don't want
That-
any in conflicts and all that.
Motion carries 801 to reduce by $2,000. Any additional motions?
It wasn't voted on by the planning board, so I can understand not wanting to go.
But they're gonna know you planted the seed.
Full transparency for the committee.
We appreciate the honesty.
Lobby the board of selectmen for a reinstatement of the funds if they truly need it.
Any additional for planning?
We gave it to the office.
Let's move to zoning, 419130. This one held steady from last year. Any motions? Okay, we're gonna move to 419410, general government buildings. This one has an increase of $17,059 over last year, largely again tied to gasoline, electric, utilities. Any motions for general government buildings?
Yeah.
Mr. Bork?
430, like to reduce by 1520.
So we have a line to reduce, we have a motion to reduce line 430 by $1,520.
Second.
Second by Ms. Douglas. Discussion?
Just general maintenance, just looking to make it flat.
Okay.
I'm sorry, how much did you say?
The
1,520.
increase, 1,520.
The increase, basically. Karen.
Oh, yeah.
Any additional discussion?
This is one area where I think that the board of selectmen could look at ARPA funds or fire department impact fees relative to, no, it's not fire department, it's communication. But potentially offset, I mean, it stinks because you're looking for ways to minimize the impact to other needed essentials, and perhaps using ARPA funds towards the equipment lease is a possibility. Just
But he's talking about maintenance and repair of the buildings.
But it's under general government funds. I'm just saying, any other discussion on, did we vote on that?
We have not
Oh, we're
voted, yet.
discussing.
We're in
Alright, I'll come
discussion.
back to this then. I'll come back. I was like,
We're
yes, we're done
discussing
voting.
this.
Any additional discussion on the motion?
Sorry. I had jumped ahead in my head.
All right, let's take a roll call vote. Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Ms. Hirschberger?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
No.
Ms. Douglas?
Yes.
I am a yes. Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Barka? Yes. Mr. Bork?
Yes.
And Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Motion carries 8-1-0, reducing that by $1,520. Any other motions for general government building?
635.
Line 635, gasoline.
So, my first question is, do we not get a discounted rate for gas?
We just don't pay the, one of the
Right, the
state
tax.
tax on it.
But right now, so you're projecting it's gonna be $3.59, and that's with your discount.
So we use, if you click on the, gasoline, no, so that's one of them, but if you click on the, unleaded fuel police, you'll bring up a tab, and it's the US Energy Information Administration, and that's where we've taken our prices.
Right. I
And right now, it's $3.57, so when I did it a few months ago, it was $3.59. That's where I take the diesel from too.
So, but to his point though, I believe that the retail price is projected, so we actually should be taking out the state tax on that number.
Is that 359 reflective of the tax being excluded?
Because I think if you look,
I'm not sure.
cause I looked at the tab and it notes that it's the retail price, and if you go into
Oh,
the
it is.
glossary and definitions, retail goes to what the consumer pays, and they actually have a summary of what they factor in for the average state tax and the federal tax. So I think they're carrying 31 cents a gallon for average state tax. And if we're not paying state tax, then we should pull that factor out of the number. Whether we wanna say, hey, it builds in because goodness only knows where it's gonna go and we want a safety.
It's gonna
But-
go up.
So I know
Why
you
not?
haven't made a motion yet. I would recommend maybe we get clarification on what that rate would be and if that tax is excluded, maybe before we take any action on that.
Right. So as John said, there's probably a delivery charge on that too. I think they're coming from like Chelsea,
Yeah.
Mass, or somewhere.
Really? Why? There aren't local places that can deliver? I can think of like 3 that are,
Almost all the gas companies come out of Chelsea, as well as gas banks.
I know I sent all the invoices, didn't I? up
Yes, you
to
did.
date?
Did, yep.
Do you remember if it had the delivery
I
charge?
think there
and what?
was.
There is a delivery charge, there's a lot of, little fees,
Yeah.
but they don't add up to very much at all.
Really?
So, yeah, if we could, I'll let him make whatever motion he
Yeah,
wants to make.
I certainly
but
don't
think
want
we
to
should
prohibit a
be-
motion, but maybe,
It can wait if we're gonna wait for clarifying.
I think if we can get
information.
clarification that that 359 is the rate that includes all fees and excludes any taxes.
I'm just thinking about what gas prices are right now, and this is above, and that's just for us paying for the gas.
Right.
I agree. Let's put a pin on that one then. Anything else in general government building?
But I think then if that's how we're doing the diesel, we should probably take a look at those ones too. I hate to say it, but.
I have,
640,
Oh,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead. No, you go ahead on yours.
640?
Reduce 640 by 500.
Motion to reduce line 640 by $500. Have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Douglas. Discussion?
It's just reduced, they have an increase of 782, and I'm just looking to reduce that down.
Okay. Any additional discussion?
This is based off a 3-year average, right, Karen?
Should be.
Yeah.
3-year average of 2669.
That's always been the benchmark we've gone by.
Right, so we spent,
Oh, you know what? I may, yeah, I must have, because I changed it from
Yeah.
Spend in,
2022.
spend was
What's the
2510, then it
current
jumped to
spend?
3815.
640.
Where, do you have an up to date on that one, Kim, where we are to date?
Yes. 640?
4190.
Yeah,
It's like 1,300.
Currently, you've spent 1,337, you have 549 left, so 29%.
1,300.
so reduction would bring that down to about 2170, 2169. Okay.
I'm sorry, were you level funding it? Or?
No.
He was a slight increase from last year.
I mean, if we're at less than 1,400 and you wanna bring it to
2,100.
2,100, I think that's reasonable.
Any additional discussion? All right, take a vote. Mr. Hayes,
Yes.
Ms. Hirschberger,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
No.
Ms. Douglas.
Yes.
I am a yes. Ms. Stevens,
Yes.
Mr. Barca. Yes. Mr. Bork,
Yes.
and Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Yes.
We didn't catch you there, Mr. Taylor.
Answer's yes.
Thank you, sir. And that motion passes 810, $500 reduction. Anything else on general government building?
So,
Do we have an answer on the prepay for the equipment lease?
Oh,
Did we
that
get
was
an answer to that?
there was a question if there was a penalty if we prepaid it. If we,
We prepaid the equipment lease
Right.
out of,
On the tower?
right, if,
I thought I shared that.
We,
I thought it
The
was
only
more if we
answer
could take it
I saw
from
was there
this
was-
year's budget.
yeah, there
Oh.
weren't funds.
I mean, yeah,
cover it
ARPA funds,
fully.
can they be used or out of the budget into your fund, like, we don't
You
have that
can't use
much.
ARPA funds to pay a lease,
Okay.
Okay.
yeah.
You
Can't
could-
use ARPA for a lease.
Could use fire impact fees can be used towards a bond payment, right?
Yes. So we have 40,000 in impact fees. I mean, I'd recommend using probably 25 or 30 of it. I would use it all.
Yep.
Cause again, if you pull it out, you'll need something next year. You know, but we do have development coming in, so we will collect more impact fees that could be used next year.
Would this be, we talk about,
We can use those for the lease, though.
creating funds to save up for equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Would this be something that we could, or the Board of Selectmen could use a warrant article to create an equipment fund? It would, to kind of like pull it out of the budget. And then, but I was hoping we could pay like this year's with, ARPA funds or something, but I don't think that'll work. I guess
Yeah,
that won't work.
I don't
Okay.
think the auditors would like that.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking like even like a warrant article to say, either, to buy out the end of the lease or something, but that would be
But we can't recommend it.
$50,000 warrant article.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing you say is there could be the opportunity, correct me if I'm wrong, to reduce the payment of $150,890 by, let's say, $20,000 from fire impact fees.
To the bond payment.
The fire station.
The bond, the
Oh, the fire
fire
station
station
payment. I thought we were
bond.
talking about the communication tower.
Yes.
Sorry.
No,
My
just
other
fire
question-
station
Related.
bond.
Yeah.
So if we do that, and then there's a warrant article to have a fund that is helping to pay for these, that is saved up for separately, so that, it gives voters a chance, like, so that next year, it doesn't necessarily have to go back into the budget. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but you're just moving money.
Right, it
So
just,
you're
it just
still-
helps with the tax cap, so that
Helps
gives
with
the
tax cap,
opportunity,
But then you're taxing the citizens more money.
well, it gives the opportunity for the Board of Selectmen to adjust the tax cap and to create a fund to save up for equipment like these.
See, I think so.
And then just, benefit, it would be essentially kicking the can down the road, right? But it gives the taxpayers an opportunity to prevent it from being kicked down the road, basically.
If they're doing it by unassigned fund balance.
Yeah.
I can see doing it that way, and that way there's no more taxation on it.
Right,
So
so it was
yeah.
just an idea. I don't-
When I advocate for like the creating the fund to save up, I'm thinking like a purchase that's going to be made in 5 years that we know is coming, or like fire trucks are 15 to 20, whatever it is, prepaying that. I mean, we already purchased this, so it's like we've already authorized the spending. It's just, it's choking everything out.
But we bought it and then we realized we can't afford it.
No, I think it's we bought it and then inflation went sky high. We bought it and we had other issues. We bought it and things came up. I mean, at the time we could afford it. And it just yes, there are choices that need to be made. But I don't think that this was necessarily a bad purchase, it just means,
I'm not saying it was a bad purchase, but it goes back to the tax cap. That's what's strangling
right,
Correct.
no,
this budget.
Anything else on general government buildings? Keeping an eye on the clock, I'd like if we can maybe get through just a couple more and have time to close out the rest of our meeting. So let's do 4195 cemeteries as an proposed increase of $1,000 related to groundskeeping, which I believe was a contract or a bidded is that correct?
It's a bid service.
Any motions on cemeteries?
I'd like to make a motion to reduce line 650 by $1,000.
Okay, so a motion by Mr. Hayes to reduce line 650 by $1,000. Do I have a second?
Second.
or go ahead.
Second by Mr. Bork. Discussion?
This reduction of $1,000 would essentially level fund it from 2021, 2022.
So I had a question on, the tree removal, fence repairs, road grading. Did we added to the highway department, correct? Could that person not, could they do this work under that budget and not have to be included here?
I love Kevin Brown and his crew to death, but I wouldn't be sending people that don't know what they're doing into a cemetery. I think that's opening up a potential
So,
can of worms.
Are these, road grading, the fence repairs? I could see potentially a tree removal wanting to be an add to but, really?
They've trimmed trees in there. I don't think they've actually removed them, but they have trimmed some that had broken branches and whatnot, and somebody hit the gate a couple of years ago. They had to fix that.
So is that increase, Mr. Leary, based on anticipated work? Like knowing they're gonna have to cut some trees or knowing they're gonna have to replace or repair fences?
They're very tight on their budget. They don't play around much.
No, I understand that. I'm just saying that we've added employees and staff that we should be
Understood.
leveraging
Understood.
to use.
It's been 1,500 for the past years, and there's no actual spend stated here, so I'm in favor of level funding it.
See, I was gonna
Unless
bring
there
it
is
to
a
$1.
specific purpose.
Any additional discussion?
I'll support the 1,000, because I was gonna bring it to $1, so, because I felt we could handle it in-house.
Okay. We'll do a roll call vote. Reduction, this is for a motion to reduce, 650 by $1,000. Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Ms. Hirschberger?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
No.
Ms. Douglas?
Yes.
I am a yes. Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Barca?
Yes.
Mr. Bork?
Yes.
And Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 8-1-0. Anything else on cemeteries? All right, 4196, other insurance. Says an increase of 6926 based on our liability insurance and what the numbers we got from Primex, which I think you all updated at the last Board of Selectmen meeting that we knew those were going up. Anything on other insurance? Okay. I'm gonna move to 419710, advertising and regional associations. Small increase of $282. Any motions?
So can I ask about 555? Are we still posting like anything in the newspaper?
I think you
Union
legally
leader.
have to.
Yep, you have to
Some things you
legally.
do, yeah.
Public hearings.
Some of these, though, I believe are offset on the revenue side, because some of them, right, because if they're.
Yeah, not on this, that would be in zoning and,
That's-
yeah.
Okay.
Anything else?
just-
Any?
So actual expenses for 20 is 1,075, 21 is 1,019. Now we're looking for 1,523.
Yeah, yeah, so I did my 3-year average, cause 2019 was 2474.
Why was it so much, do you know?
Offhand, I don't.
Did they change the laws that you could add, one of the postings could be the website?
Yeah, yeah, this one's
Yeah.
not planning though.
Where, do we know where we are spent on that?
Yeah, $93. Line 555,
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So
$93,
And
$93.
so we just
We
did a
spent
public
93 year to date?
Yes.
Line.
And we just
You
had
haven't
a
posted
public
anything.
hearing, I don't know how much that was for. the one Monday night we had to advertise in the paper,
And I missed the H.
and I
I'm
didn't
gonna-
know what that.
All right, that should work.
Right.
I'm gonna make a motion to reduce 555 by $400.
We have a motion,
It was free?
we have a motion to reduce line 555, public notices and ads by $400. Do I have a second?
Sure.
Second by Ms. Douglas. Any additional discussion? Okay, do a roll call vote. Mr. Hayes,
Yes.
Ms. Hirschberger,
Yes.
Mr. Leary,
Yes.
Ms. Douglas.
Yes.
I am a yes. Ms. Stevens,
Yes.
Mr. Barka,
Yes.
Mr. Bork,
Yes.
and Mr. Taylor.
Yes.
Motion passes 900. Reduction of $400. Anything else on advertising? All right, I'm gonna call that a stopping point. We've hit police.
Good progress.
We will pick up with ambulance and fire going in on next Thursday evening. So we go back, just a quick summary to the tax cap tab. We currently sit $86,777 over the tax cap. Means we've brought it down about $170,000 this evening.
Sorry, what's the number again? 86 what?
86,777 over the tax cap currently.
If you wanna jump on street lighting real quick, that's a pretty easy one. It'll take us about 30 seconds.
All right, Mr. Leary, what number is that?
4316-30, or dot 30.
431630, street lighting and zero level funded. Emotions?
You had to end on a solid.
Well done, Mr. Leary. Yes.
Looks right.
All right,
Just trying to help you out.
thanks, sir.
One more box ticked off.
All right, so we'll pick up back with ambulance and fire next Thursday evening. With that, in the 8 minutes we have left this evening, turn it over to Mr. Leary for any general town updates.
Really, anything, this is what's going on.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Hirschberger, any, oh, go ahead, oh, sorry, yeah, any questions for Mr. Leary?
Sure.
I mean, well, we're sitting here, you know, we're looking to cut, right, save money. I talked about it like 3-4 weeks ago. That light bulb is still on in the gazebo. That thing is on 24/7, 365.
Is it a solar light?
No, it's a light bulb.
Yeah, I know, but is it a solar light?
Not that I'm aware of. There's
You don't
no
know?
Panel.
solar mechanism or anything, no. And this conduit comes down and it's no on off switch.
Okay.
Is it safety?
What if it goes on automatic like the lights out here?
Yeah, it's on all the
Motion
time.
We'll
sensor
find
or
out.
something?
It's on all the time.
Yeah, because these lights during the daytime too?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a box
Who asked for that? Wow.
in this building,
Yeah,
so maybe the timing is off, cause I think they're off the same power that would run the Christmas lights.
okay,
I would've thought that would've been on the time.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about the Christmas lights too.
okay.
Or you could just do like one of those light sensing ones.
Can they remove them this year?
What?
Can they remove them this year?
Move what, the Christmas lights?
Yeah, they're hanging down, they're on the ground.
Oh, they're still up there.
Yeah.
Oh,
You see them every day.
yeah.
That's a board of selectmen meeting.
We'll ask Mr.
Yeah,
Brown.
Brian, come
I
visit
think
us.
Mr. Brown handles that. We'll ask him.
Okay.
So light bulb and Christmas lights.
Anything else for Mr. Leary?
Just so that people know, well, one of the questions for next week with the lawyers, we've had a conversation about the,
Yes, thank you.
the conservation committee and the use of their funds. As I said, I normally make the motion to reduce the money for the tools, but they made a point that they weren't sure they could access it, so I submitted a question that hopefully we can get answered from the lawyers next week as to whether that assumption's even correct. Can they do they have access through, can we create a petty cash? Is there some method by which they can actually draw down the funds? Because if they can't, then I will actually, Diane, Jason, I will not make my motion this year. But if it is possible, then I think we need to work with them to create a method by which the volunteers are not paying for gasoline and small tools out of their pockets.
I agree. And your question was two-part. I think Ms. White answered part of that. It
Right.
had to do with gift cards, that the auditors wouldn't look
Right.
favorably on that, but, or, yeah, Ms. Kleiner did, sorry.
Oh,
But then the second piece of that was the petty cash potentially piece. So I
Right.
think just getting.
Yeah, so
Is it possible?
So we don't carry
No.
petty cash, we used to, but, you know, we got rid of that. So their conservation fund is, you know, out there in
Right.
a savings account. So when we pay something, they submit a bill, you know, we pay it, it creates a due to and a due from, which then the treasurer and I have to go and get that money to bring back into the general fund, cause the general fund paid it.
Right.
So for you to do that, I mean, then you just have us holding cash that,
So my concern is, like, they were authorized by warrant article to use those funds for those purposes.
yeah.
So I'm not of the opinion we should be raising taxes to fund it when there's already a fund available.
Right.
So is there a way by which they can actually access those funds? Because if they legally can't, even though so yes, the taxpayer said, please use it this way, but if the RSAs actually say, I'm sorry, no, you can't, then that's an issue. If it's a matter of, well, we don't want to, well, that's a different issue.
Yeah.
So if,
Mr.
can
Chairman?
it legally?
Nothing, there's no.
Yes, Mr. Taylor.
Just in the sake of time, can we table this conversation until we have legal counsel next week, because.
Right, no, I'm just
Search for the- has
advising.
4 minutes to finish.
And we're waiting on additional clarification.
Right, so I just wanted to make it aware when the conversation comes up, that's
So,
been
cause
asked.
it used to be, I think, land trust, and then it got changed, so.
Moving to school business, Ms. Hirschberger, we'll give you, 2 minutes for any general updates.
The MS-25 was uploaded today.
Yep.
And, I just wanna point out that, you know, last night I did send over the new BA report. He's now including multiple reports. I think there was about 200 pages of reports, so hopefully, you know, hopefully that's more of the information that you're looking for, both summary reports and detailed reports, capital projects fund, balance of reserve and trust funds. But if you're looking for anything else, feel free to
The
email.
detail's good, I appreciate
I
that.
liked those. The answers, though, I felt were more of a manner of ticking off a box than actual answers. So it's like, we're still working on this. Well, no, I don't, I wanna know what the answer is. I don't wanna, we're still working on it. I actually want the answer. So I'm gonna go through it and I will say,
If you want additional clarification on those,
Yes,
just
I
let me
just-
know, we can route them through that one.
Yep.
so not to you,
I
I'm
did-
not blaming
no.
you in this,
Well,
in the
one
slightest.
thing, I understand, but I will tell you, they told me they spent an hour answering those questions. So,
Well-
hold on, wait. And so, one thing I did ask at the school board meeting last night was, you know, one thing I think that the budget committee is asking for is a projection of where we're gonna be. So I did ask, Mr. Totten when he thought he might have a better idea of that, and he said, he thinks within about a month.
Because,
So.
since we are having the lawyer here next week, I do plan to ask, was it even legal to sign that contract? Because the contract that was signed based on the AIA form exceeds what was authorized by the warrant article.
Tara's time's up.
I'm sorry?
Tara's time's up.
So, no, I know, but so, I want,
Thank you, timekeeper.
was that a violation of RSA 32, just in signing that contract? Because it's signed, from the start, you were in violation by signing a contract that exceeded what was authorized.
I think those are.
So when the lawyer's here next week, that question will come up.
Have you thought about having representation from the school also? Attorney?
So what is the intent of next week as to what our responsibilities are, right?
I think the intent next week is for us to have full clarification of our roles and responsibilities as laid out in the RSAs, because I think we talked about this. I read them one way, you read them another way, neither one of us are lawyers. We need someone that understands that from a legal perspective, so that we know.
We used to have a workshop, honestly, when a bunch of people onboarded. We've had them come in and invited everybody, and we discuss what the budget committee was.
I think to your point, Ryan, I don't see a need for that right now.
Right.
We find ourselves at
Well,
the,
because Carrie's starting to ask questions now that,
Well, our
really
legal
don't-
guy can answer
I
that.
think they
Like,
can provide their interpretation, because we asked them to provide their interpretation to help inform us back in early September. That
we know
Mr.
what
Leary
the
was a
school
part of.
board's legal is gonna be. When, they'll find a legal reason. The question is, I'm having is, from our perspective, what is our obligation to the taxpayers in the fact that a contract was signed that exceeded what was authorized to be signed? What is our responsibility there?
All right. Any questions from Ms. Hirschberger in the 40 seconds we have left? All right, any final member input, new business? Any public input? close public input, entertain a motion to adjourn.
To me, second.
I have a motion by Mr. Leary, second by Mr. Douglas. Quick roll call, Mr. Hayes.
Yes.
Ms. Hirschberger.
Yes.
Mr. Leary.
Yep.
Ms. Douglas.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Ms. Stevens.
Yes.
Mr. Barca. Yes. Mr. Bork. Yes. And Mr. Taylor. Motion carries 9-0-0. Meeting is adjourned. See you all next Thursday. Have a good evening.